Okay, we are live. Sorry, folks, I had a couple of technical snafus there at the beginning. and Welcome to episode 20 of Fright Lounge, the show in which the best horrorologists in town will discuss horror in depth and get a conversation going for the seasoned horror fan, as well as introducing newbies to the genre. I am your host, Rigor from Then Is Now podcast, the East Meets the West podcast, and the Cult Movie Lounge.
I'm Bill Van Ryn from Fanzine Drive-In Asylum and the weekly live streaming show, The Drive-In Asylum Double Feature.
Awesome, awesome. And with us, as always, is Michael. What's going on, Michael?
Hey, just killing and being me.
Excellent,
Oh,
excellent.
Michael.
I kill. That's what I do.
Gotta be me. And joining us once again is the Prince Regent of electronic dance music himself, the great Dantes Alexander. Glad you could join us again, Dantes.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love your hospitality. So I'm back to talk shit and, of course, have fun.
Awesome.
Came to the right place.
Did you want to just briefly mention how is things going? You're in Chicago and you had some water issues.
Yeah, it was actually raining all day yesterday. So depending on what part of the city you live in or what part of Illinois, your basement could be underwater. And unfortunately, my regalness, my basement is underwater. So I am waiting on some set help so I can get off the Titanic this evening. And yeah.
Oh my God, that's awful.
That is awful. Ugh.
Oh, so one aside I just wanted to quickly bring up is because Bill, I saw that you posted on your Facebook page that you saw Godzilla -1. Did Michael or Dantes, did you guys get a chance to see that yet?
No, unfortunately, I've been stuck in the Nightmare Before Christmas land. So
I love that movie. I gotta watch that. I gotta watch that before Christmas.
But did you see it, Michael?
I did.
What'd you think?
I liked it, but I'm not as insane about it as everybody online seems to be. Like I was kind of 50-50 on it. But yeah, like every movie reviewer on YouTube that I normally check in with is raving about how it's like the best movie ever. So yeah, I mean it's obviously well liked. I thought it was good, but I'm not like doing cartwheels over it. So
I loved it, Bill.
It's my favorite Godzilla movie, hands down.
So many. I mean, that's my
Yeah.
drawback is, gosh, there's been so many in my lifetime already. Like, do I really need another one?
You need this
always
one.
need more Godzilla in your life.
Okay, fine.
I wouldn't have said that about any other Godzilla movie, but you
Okay.
need this one because
All right.
this movie, our friend Jennifer Upton commented on this on her Facebook not too long ago. Godzilla is scary in this movie, and there was never a Godzilla movie in my lifetime where the idea of Godzilla was scary, but like his physical appearance on screen was not usually frightening. And in
No.
this movie, it's really kind of scary how they set up these Godzilla attacks, and the acting is top notch, and they really make these characters the focal point of the story instead of Godzilla. And then Godzilla is seen as sort of like this, the way he was intended, probably as a force of nature that can't be controlled. And it's like the world's worst hurricane is coming towards you and shit's going to get fucked up. So that's why I like this Godzilla movie so much. Go see it, everybody, if you haven't seen it. And it's just fabulous.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the last one that Toho did, Shin Godzilla, was spectacular too, because it was something you never saw before. It was I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but it's Godzilla is like this monster's approaching
Godzilla.
Japan. It's presuming
Godzilla.
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 Well, I'm from Boston. What do you want? We could
Boston.
ask, but they don't belong. And he's approaching Japan, and they don't even know what the hell it is. It's out of the universe kind of thing. So it's not in canon. And the whole movie is the politics of every single decision that these guys have to make to try and save the country. They have to run it up and down the chain of command, and it's just insane because they can't get anything done, and they're praying for the Americans to just come in and bomb the shit out of it. And so I thought that was amazing. And then I thought this one topped it because it was I described it to someone without giving anything away. I said, try to take all the drama of the English Patient and throw a monster into it.
Ooh, now that sounds like it could tickle my fancy there.
Yeah.
That was some serious dramedy there. Yeah. So are you guys really telling me like I should just go out of my way and go see this movie tomorrow?
Before it leaves the theater.
Okay, yeah. Fine, I'll go. All right.
See it on the big screen, if at all possible. It's really a movie about the war, which is the thing I wasn't expecting. It's a movie about World War II, and especially the Japanese experience of World War II. And the main character is a kamikaze pilot who abandons his mission right before he's about to do this. He like makes an excuse to land in this little naval base that Japan has set up on an island, and he claims there's a problem with his plane, but really he just couldn't go through with this. And this is the drama that he carries throughout the whole movie, is everybody around him, especially after, you know, the bomb, is that it's his fault for not doing this, and he really carries a lot of the weight of that on his shoulders, which I'm sure a lot of people really did. So there is real drama in the middle of the whole Godzilla thing.
And that's what the first one was too. It was sort of a reaction to the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And, you know, the first one, despite, you know, the effects were 1950s effects, but it's still, if you watch the Japanese version, it's very powerful and very disturbing to see them. Because it, like you said, it's like a force of nature. He just comes in and just lays waste to everything. The people are like, what the fuck just happened? Why do we have no homes now? Why half our friends dead, you know? So on that note, we're going to jump in today's films. We have 3 anthology films from Amicus Productions: Asylum from 1972, Tales from the Crypt, also from 1972, and Vault of Horror from 1973. And I do want to issue a spoiler alert. We're probably going to spoil the shit out of these movies. And for those unaware, an anthology film is comprised of several short stories, not just one story that takes up the entire movie. Amicus Productions was a British production company that produced a stable of horror films that rivaled the more famous studio Hammer Pictures, and many of Amicus's films were anthologies. They had all kinds of famous names and terrifying stories, a lot of which were written by Robert Bloch, as we'll find out today, the guy who wrote Psycho. And one thing I actually learned in my research that I didn't know is that he was a protege of H.P. Lovecraft. So that's
oh wow.
May have to dive into it some future thing. Amicus produced a bunch of conventional movies, also conventional horror movies, such as The Skull, The Psychopath, Scream and Scream Again, I Monster, and Now the Screaming Starts, and The Beast Must Die. So they've got a lot of great movies out there. So
Scream and Scream Again. That's a great title.
It really is, yeah.
Look up the song on Spotify.
It's a great song, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
I was playing in the car and my wife was like, what the fuck is this?
Would you believe I just listened to it today?
Oh, that's funny.
I would not believe that.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
Hypothetically, I would not believe that.
It would be true.
I do believe it, but I wouldn't.
All true.
What am I saying? All right, never mind. Shut up.
I totally believe it. But so before we actually get into the movies, I just wanted to, normally what we do, folks, is I'll ask, you know, when was the first time we saw this movie and what was our first reaction? But I want to do it since we're doing 3 and they're all from the same company and within the same time period. Let's just go around the table and, you know, find out when you guys first saw these. So I'm going to start because I'm going to say, you know, I've said this before on the show. I've told this story probably a couple of times now, but I remember seeing this in 1972. I was 2 years old in the backseat of my parents' car at the drive-in. I have a vivid memory of this, particularly the short called Frozen Fear, which is the first short story in the film. Age 2, I have just vivid memories of body parts wrapped in meat going after people, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But the funny part is my mother and I for years couldn't remember what the name of this movie was, so we always just called it Chopping Heads. And a buddy of mine once said, a movie starring Peter Cushing called Chopping Heads, I'm there, you know.
You can't go wrong with Peter Cushing, man.
So
I know, right? Seriously.
I finally figured it out, though. I think in my late teens and probably in my early 20s, I was at a sidewalk sale at a video store, and I managed to pick up a VHS of it for $3, which I still have. But what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, I do remember seeing the other two on TV. I don't recall if I saw those in the movies or not, but I definitely remember the Santa segment from the Tales from the Crypt TV show, which we were just talking about off mic. When I remember watching that with my parents and comparing it to the original version, so that was kind of funny. So Michael, now I don't know about the other two, but I'm almost positive that I showed you Vault of Horror once when we were younger because of the Tom Baker segment. Does that ring a bell?
Yes. It wasn't until they got, because both Roger and I were watching the Tom Baker Doctor Who episode seasons when we were younger, and when we heard that he was in this other, or realized that he was in this other movie, we were like, sweet. So, but I didn't remember it that I didn't remember that I had seen that particular story about him being an artist and everything until it started last night. I was watching it and I was like, "Oh, I've seen this one," but I could not remember like how it ended or what. But I remember him being a painter and da 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 da. But so yeah, I know we watched that together at some point for that particular reason, mostly.
Cool.
Then the other two I had never seen until this past week when I watched them for the show.
Cool. And Dantes, were these all first time views for you, or had you seen any of them?
These were all first time views for me. I was familiar with the Tales from the Crypt, 1972. For some reason, I just stayed away from it. But yeah, first time for sure, definitely with Asylum. The most memorable part I think of Asylum is that crazy ass laugh. Jeffrey bailed on his laugh. Yeah, that is like one of the best male kooky crazy like horror laughs like you guys will ever hear. So I feel like I'm spoiling this movie, right?
That's all
Like, I
right.
shouldn't be
It's
saying.
okay.
We already gave a warning. You're good.
But that's my most memorable part of that movie. Tales from the Crypt, that was actually refreshing for me to watch. I watched that 1 second, and it was refreshing because you have like these preconceived ideas of what the Crypt Keeper is, because I grew up with that version from 89 to 96, so I'm used to seeing the skeleton motherfucker,
Yeah.
or
I was
whatever.
expecting that too.
Yeah. So when it first came on, dude, I'm like, that's the Crypt Keeper. He's looking kind of, it's looking like Spencer's in there. But I eased my expectation because the stories were true, and the music. You guys know, obviously, me being a music person, right off the bat, I'm just going to talk about that amazing fucking score at the beginning of Tales from the Crypt. I felt maybe like it came across a little campy now, but I think at the time it was totally probably right on to encompass the feeling and the vibe that they were going. So I'll pass the mic now.
Was that the one that was like a little bit pipe organ sounding?
Yeah, at the beginning. Yeah, you remember. Yeah, it was like very, 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 very cliche. It's cliche now because we hear it all the time, but at the time, it was fresh. Like, you know what I mean? It was fresh.
That's Toccata in Fugue Minor, which is the one that goes diddly, diddly,
Yep.
Oh, that was that one on that movie? Oh, okay. I was thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I got mixed up.
Vault of Horror had Night on Bald Mountain.
Oh, yes. I recognize that right away.
Yeah.
I love
it.
that.
Makes me think of what is that Disney movie?
Fantasia?
Yes.
With the animation? Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So, Bill, just to round this out, it's fairly safe to say that you've seen all three of these, but had you seen any of them theatrically?
Yes, actually, I've seen Asylum theatrically. It was one of the Monsterama films one year, and actually, I've seen all of them theatrically that way. Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror were maybe they did them all on the same night, actually. But the funny thing about that was the version that they showed of Asylum, because as we'll see when we look at the newspaper ads for this film, it had two titles in the United States. One of them was House of Crazies, and that was the PG version that was reissued in 1979. So on its first run, Asylum was rated R, and then it got re-rated. I think they removed a couple seconds of violence. I'm not sure where, but it was retitled House of Crazies. And then every print that existed in the United States had the original title cut out of it, and the title card was replaced with House of Crazies. And that's all that existed, I think, after a certain point. Like it would probably be hard to find a US print that still had the title Asylum on it. So when we got it at the drive-in, it said House of Crazies, and I was like total fanboy, like, yeah, we got the alternate title.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let me just get into this real quick, the behind the scenes here. We had Roy Ward Baker was the director. We talked about him when we discussed the Monster Club last month, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's done a bunch of great movies like Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, and obviously, but he also did The Vault of Horror, which we'll talk about later on. And as we mentioned before, it was written by Robert Bloch, who was famous for Psycho. And actually, I think he wrote.
Didn't he write a book?
He wrote it as a novel, and then it became a movie. And I'm pretty sure he wrote the screenplay too.
Oh, wow.
And he also wrote Torture Garden and The House That Dripped Blood, which are both Amicus films. And of course, he's an accomplished,
that actually came on after Tales from the Crypt, so I watched that.
Oh, nice.
Torture Garden?
Yes. No, The House That Dripped Blood. I'm sorry.
Oh, House That Dripped Blood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Torture Garden's pretty good too. I like House of Drip Blood better though, between the two of them.
Torture Garden's the one with Burgess Meredith, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that on late night TV with my mother.
Well, Cushing's in it too.
Yeah. Yeah, but Burgess is sort of the wraparound host of the thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the story is basically like we said, it's multiple short stories, and the wraparound story is about this guy named Dr. Martin who goes to an asylum for the incurably insane. I can't speak tonight, folks. I don't know what's wrong with me. I haven't had a drop to drink.
Let's get this man some fluids.
No, I mean alcohol. So he's got this job interview, and he talks with this warden named Lionel Rutherford, who's wheelchair bound because one of the patients attacked him, and he declares that there's no hope for any of them. So as part of the interview process is he basically tells him, you have to identify Dr. B. Starr, who's formerly the head of the asylum, but now he's had a mental breakdown. So he's got to go through and talk to all the patients that are in there and deduce which one is Dr. Starr. So it just gets really interesting. We get into each of their stories there. And so what I'll do is I will call up the movie ads first. Oh, there it is, Asylum. And I think yours, Bill, come towards the end of this run. Okay, so this one here is from the Boston Globe. Oh, yes, I got this specifically because I don't know if you could see down here.
Can't see anything yet.
I'm not sharing it. Hold on. It would help if I shared it. Wait a minute. What's going on here? There we go. Share the screen.
Sharing is caring, my man.
If I could share the screen. Okay.
You're going to sing the Coke song.
Oh, that's a good.
That is.
Good, the wrapped up head. That's a great poster image.
And down here you could see the North Reading Starlight Drive-In. That's where I saw it.
Oh my God.
I don't know if it was on November 17th, 1972, but this is from the Boston Globe. And I'm just going to zoom in here if I can. Yeah, there we go. On the side here, I kept this part of the newspaper too, because it had, you guys can't see that, but I can. I like to look at what else was playing around the time these movies. So you had Asylum and Necromancy, which I don't know that one. I've heard of Gurley, but Bill, do you recall Necromancy?
Yeah, Orson Welles is in it. It's about that where they're gonna switch souls in a person's body, and there's gonna be transference of souls.
Right. Sort of a precursor or inspiration to Get Out.
Well, yeah, there were a lot of movies that did it before Get Out. Like the Mephisto Waltz is another one. That's from 70. And then there was a really good one in the 80s or 90s called The Skeleton Key.
I love that movie. That's
It's good,
great.
isn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah. I actually just watched that a couple of days ago. So
I
good.
like that one.
I don't know if I saw that one.
You could
Get
actually,
Out is amazing, though. I love Get Out.
Get Out. Okay, and then next up we've got another one. It's a similar kind of thing, also from Boston. And then this one is from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. Bill,
Yeah,
you have nothing
fabulous.
to lose but your mind. They're all pretty much the same picture. This one's also from the Los Angeles Times. Oops, I should go back one. It's got a couple of great, great reviews here. And then another one from San Fran, and then this one's cool. It's kind of a smaller one.
Oh,
Playing
Beware
with,
My Brethren. I like that one.
I don't even know that one either. And then this is also from the Los Angeles Times.
It's
Oh yeah,
muted.
this was the House of Crazies.
oh
This house
wow.
is not a home.
Yeah, that was Dynamite
Dynamite.
Entertainment.
It
Dynamite,
was.
I love
Dynamite
that.
Entertainment put that out at the end of the 70s as House of Crazies, and they developed a whole new ad campaign for it. There were like TV spots out the wazoo, of course, during afternoon cartoons to get the kids interested in a movie that their parents probably wouldn't take them to see,
Right.
House of Crazies.
That's a good one though. I love that movie so much.
Yeah. And it's funny too. If I don't know, Bill, if in your search research, did you see the reviews? Because they were treating it like it was a brand new movie. And I'm
Yeah,
like, this
a lot
movie's
of
almost
people
like
didn't realize that. They're like, something about this movie tells me that it's old. Like, really? What was your first clue?
Right.
oh man. And here's another one. I think I put this one together. Yeah, I did. Because I liked that it was playing with along with Seven Bride. I'm sorry, uh, the Seven Brothers Meet Dracula.
Another Dynamite Entertainment film.
Yeah, it's also the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. But then also alongside it were two other kung fu movies, Fortress in the Sun and The Golden Triangle. I thought that was kind of neat. And then this was just another one. Um, again, same. It might have been the same paper. Oh, this is cool. This is one of yours, Bill. I have not seen this one. Wow. Come to the asylum to get killed. That's cool.
That is
Universal
good.
Now.
The British one.
Oh, okay.
It's
Now,
from
That is really cool.
is that the Universal a theater, or is that did Universal put it out there?
no, that's a theater.
Okay.
It was a theater in London. I'm pretty sure this ad is from London. When I did a whole series on London, I found all this cool shit there. And there were a bunch of teasers from Asylum. I don't know if you put them on. Look at it's playing with Duel. Talk about movies it was playing with, Roger.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Duel was a theatrical release in the UK. And here
That's
it was a
amazing.
TV movie. But of course, Duel directed by a guy who went on to a somewhat notable career,
Yeah,
Steven Spielberg.
apparently. That's what I heard. No, I
That's a
love that
great
movie.
movie.
Duel's fucking fantastic. I love that movie.
Yeah,
That's funny.
with McLeod himself.
And did you know that they took part of the sound of the truck going over the cliff and mixed it in with the dead shark sinking into the ocean at the end of Jaws after his head exploded?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Because he said something about like when he realized when he was working on Jaws that it had a similar like thematic whatever
Yeah.
to the truck in Duel. So
Yeah.
it worked really well. I thought that was cool.
And then we've got
Roger, what else has this guy been in?
he's it's Herbert Lom. He played Inspector Dreyfus, Clouseau's boss. You know, he would be like
Oh,
Clouseau,
right.
and his eye would be twitching.
Okay. I knew I had seen him, but I
The
could
Pink
not
Panther
place
film.
it. Okay.
He was also in Mark of the Devil, which is an infamous movie, which I still have the promotional vomit bag from.
I got one too.
Yeah.
Fun.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yeah,
Expecting you to puke.
yeah. I always I still quote him from Revenge of the Pink Panther, where he's got the scientist developing the giant laser. He's gonna, blackmail the world with it, and he's like, "I have to tinkle," and the scientist is like, "No, no, we don't have time for that." Oh, this is a nice one. After the hospital comes Asylum.
Yeah, The Hospital was a movie that was big at the time. This was 72. And that was the movie that came out, or it was another Patty Chayefsky scripted film after Network. Or no, before Network.
Oh wow.
I'm confused. Sorry.
I think it's going around. And then we've got, oh, that's a creepy one. Oh my God.
Bonnie must be mad to think her lover's wife is off her head.
Then they're all mad in us. Oh, that's too funny. It got an X rating in England, but an X is the same as R over here.
That whole story with the body parts that are wrapped up like this, moving around the basement, uh, that totally made me think of you, Raj. I don't know why. Maybe it was because of I don't know. There was something about like when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is like, I have no idea what the exact association was, but it struck me as a scene that you would have written and directed and had people in, like the leg moves over here and like, but it
The
was really
effects were
cool.
good too.
I'm like yelling at the screen. Never mind of like, open the door, open the door. Stop
It's
trying to kill them. Just
It's
open the
probably
door.
because I was traumatized when I was two, because that's the one I remember the most, and I probably just talked about it my whole life.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But the one thing that killed me this time around watching it, I was kind of laughing, and I turned to my wife and I'm like, "It's a torso. Run. What's it gonna do to you?"
I know. And it's not like it can move very fast.
Right.
It's hoping you'll be frozen in fear
Yeah.
and not be able to move at all.
And then we got another one. Oh, this is US ad. Oh, this is different, right?
You
Did
think
the other
nothing
ones
to
have
do
these
is
guys at
but
the
you're
bottom?
right.
They did, yeah. A couple
Some
of
of them
years
did.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
There's another one though that you'll appreciate. This one. This is cool.
I gotta move the. I have the
Horizontal.
faces in my way.
The butcher.
Wait a minute. Oh, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Everywhere you have nothing to lose but your mind. That is cool. I like that.
Yeah, that is really nice.
This is California. Nice.
Yeah, this was during the LA premiere.
Is there any backstory as to how Peter Cushing got so heavily involved with these productions? Because I still feel like having Peter Cushing instantly legitimizes any production, even if it's good or bad.
Or he just caught on with the fans of these types of films. He became famous because of the well, I mean, he had been in things before the Hammer films, but the Hammer films, the early ones like Dracula and The Curse of Frankenstein, both of those movies cemented him as a horror star. So then at some point he became bankable, just like Christopher Lee did. And they were both. If you had one or the other, or if you were lucky, both in your movie, then you knew it was going to be a big hit, no matter what, because
Right.
people were going to come see it.
And one thing too about his performance here, especially that whole scene where he's explaining to the guy about why he made the suit because his son died, and he's got the tears in his eyes. Those were real because his wife had died, I think, not too long before this film was made, and he almost wasn't going to do it. And Christopher Lee kind of talked him out of it, and he's like, "Look, you gotta get over it, and you gotta move on with your life, and this was the perfect thing for you. It'll take your mind off things." Because he'd been married to her for like 40, 50 years, something.
Yeah, she really did. She really had just passed away, and he made this movie right around the time the incident that you're thinking of, Roger, happened on the set of Horror Express,
That's
which
right.
was a Spanish film that they had both signed on to do. Regardless, it's
Right.
honestly one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. I think it's just a fucking awesome movie. But anyway, like it was Cushing's first job after his wife had died, and he showed up on the set and he was like, I just don't think I can do this, and that's where that incident happened.
Right.
But this was the same year. They made these movies right around the same time. I think this was the first that Horror Express was kind of like, it was to them it was a foreign film because it was Spanish, and this was a British movie working with people that they had worked with before.
Right.
So this probably did a lot to lift his spirits, probably, like working with all those old friends again.
Right. Like Roy Ward Baker and them. Yeah, we'll have to add Horror Express because I love that movie also.
Mm.
Add that to a future episode. But I love this. Look at this: the hot-blooded beauty in the cold freezer. Look at the leg that creeps with his no body. It's not easy breathing in paper bag, especially if you're only a head.
How do you have lungs? How are you breathing if you're
Right.
just a head in a bag?
Just look at the way they're dying in the living room. Doctor makes his last call. See the little metal man and his big knife.
I want to die in the bathroom like Elvis, not the living room.
Can we eat in the dining room? Oh, wait, no, that's the dining room. Sorry. That's too funny. I love that. That's great. Good stuff, Bill. I knew you were going to come up with some great stuff because I was looking and I didn't have time to look in advance. So I was doing it this morning and I'm like, Bill's going to have way better stuff.
Yours was good too.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. So let me get back to, oops, why did I do that? Get back to my notes here. All right. So, we've got, okay. So yeah, so I mentioned the whole wraparound story. I just wanted to, oh, well, let's go through briefly the short stories themselves. Now, Frozen Fear is the one we talked about. It's basically, this woman named Bonnie recounts she's one of the inmates at the asylum. She recounts the plot to murder Ruth, the wealthy and controlling wife of her lover Walter. Some moments before being killed, Ruth explains her recent infatuation for voodoo. I cannot talk today. And its knowledge, hoodoo, the voodoo that you do, and its
You
knowledge
do.
of forces beyond life and death.
Are you sure you haven't had a lot of sugar today?
No, I can't. I am diabetic. When her husband hacks her body into pieces and wraps them in meat paper and hides the parts in a new freezer in the cellar, the dismembered limbs do not stop moving and begin to attack Walter until finally killing him. Bonnie reaches the house and is horrified upon finding her lover in the freezer rather than the expected cadaver of Ruth. She too is attacked by the dismembered limbs. So we've got Barbara Parkins played Bonnie, Sylvia Sims played Ruth, Richard Todd played Walter. Anybody know anything about these guys? I didn't really get a chance to do a whole heck of a lot of research.
Well, Barbara Parkins was in Valley of the Dolls.
I
Oh,
thought
dear.
that sounded familiar. Yeah.
She's the star, one of the stars of Valley of the Dolls. She's the good girl, Anne, who just like sort of stumbles her way into a lucrative modeling career. And she was also, speaking of the Mephisto waltz, she was in the Mephisto waltz also.
Oh, okay.
So she was no stranger to horror movies at this point. In fact, she had probably been on the way to being typecast by this point because this came after the Mephisto waltz, which would make it like at least the second horror film that she'd done.
Right. Every time growing up I hear the title of that movie, I would think of the Mephisto from Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a good one. That was like we talked about. Like I said, I thought the effects were really cool. I believed that, like, even the head rolling around, I'm like, obviously it's got to be magic of some kinds of voodoo, but it's like, how the hell does it do that? It's just like jumping around the house.
Listen, when you're a severed head, your options are limited. Okay, you're going to do whatever you can.
That's one thing I always had an issue with in the movie Reanimator is, like, how does he draw breath to talk if he's a severed head? He has no lungs.
It happens in that Argento film Trauma also, if you've ever seen that one with Piper
Yeah.
Laurie.
Yeah.
Oh, people shit on that era of Argento's career, but I happen to love Trauma. I think it's one of his better movies, especially with some of the crap that he made. Starting with a year that begins with the number 2, it was all downhill. So Trauma looks better and better the further we get into the 2s.
I remember enjoying the Stendhal Syndrome. Was that in the 90s or in the 2000s?
That was 96. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah. So then we have the second story in this called The Weird Tailor, which has Peter Cushing in it. Oh, and so the main character in it is Barry Morse. He plays a guy named Bruno. Bill, I know you know who he's from, but my killer, Dantes, did you recognize him at all?
Which one are we talking about?
The Weird Tailor. He was the tailor that Peter Cushing comes in after.
I don't think so. I don't think I
Yeah,
recognize.
unless I missed something.
He was the doctor, Professor Bergman in Space 1999, and he was also Lieutenant Philip Gerard on The Fugitive, the TV show, which is the character Tommy Lee Jones played in the movie adaptation.
Hmm. Okay.
Who's
Oh
hunting,
wow.
Dr. Richard Kimball. So basically, this story is about Bruno the tailor. He's in the asylum, and he explains the story how basically he's going to get evicted. Him and his wife, and they live, I guess, in the back of their tailor shop, and they're going to get evicted by their dickhead landlord. And Peter Cushing comes in and offers him $200 to make a suit out of this weird material that sort of it's like it's almost like I can't even describe it. It's like it glows silver, and he gives them specifications. So he gives them the dimensions, like how it's supposed to be made, like what size and all that, but he can only make it between midnight and 5 a.m. The guy does it over the course of a week, brings it to him, and then finds out that Peter Cushing can't pay him because he spent all his money on a book which has magic spells in it, and one of the things was it taught him how to make this kind of suit. So Bruno gets pissed off. He wants to leave. He opens the door and he sees the dead body of Peter Cushing's son, and he kind of is like shitting his pants. And then Cushing pulls a gun out and he tries to explain to him he made the suit to bring his son back to life. But, Bruno's terrified. So they start struggling over the gun. And of course, Peter Cushing gets killed. He takes the suit and he runs back home to his wife, tells her to put it in the fire, and he takes the book too. She doesn't do that. What does she do? She puts the suit on a mannequin, and of course, the mannequin comes to life and strangles Bruno. One interesting about this thing about this story too is it had previously been adapted as an episode of the Boris Karloff TV show Thriller.
Yeah, that's actually the first place that I had ever seen that story before this movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's not fair. You guys have a head start on me. I'm just
me too. Get used to it.
God.
I'll trade you, Dantes.
Hey, shit, I'll have some of that experience.
You can have my last 10 years. Oh my God. Yeah, so anything you guys wanted to talk about this story?
Those are my favorite of them, but that will say
yeah. It was fine. I don't know. I guess, yeah. I don't know. Like when we found out that the goal was to bring the son back to life, and then they didn't even because of the way the scene went with the gun, like they didn't never even attempted to do that. I felt kind of cheated. It's like, oh man, like they said they were going to try to bring it back to life. We wanted to see if it would work,
Right.
But it was kind of cool. The mannequin thing was cool too.
It was
freaky. I feel like I have seen that mannequin thing done before somewhere. I don't know where I've seen it, Mike Hill, but I feel like I saw it on the X-Files or something like that.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching, but
no, I think it's been done a few times, that type of thing. Yeah.
I have to say I love anything where a mannequin comes to life, or it doesn't even have to come to life. Just there has to be some creepy use for mannequins in a movie, and I'm there. I have a whole list of favorite mannequin movies, although I never even thought of this as a mannequin movie because it's so small of a part in the whole scheme of things. But now you've piqued my interest in this more as a mannequin horror story. So thanks. I'm gonna have to go back and maybe I can just isolate that story and put it on a mannequin mixtape.
There you go. I always loved that Twilight Zone episode where the lady's in the department store and she can't figure out how to get out.
Yes, that's what I thought when I saw that. Yeah,
I felt so bad for her when I see that episode.
I did too.
And they're allowed to go on vacation as a human for like a week, and she ends up staying for what, a month or something.
Well, the pleasures of being a human are many, so I can't blame her.
Yeah.
Of course, Tourist Trap.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who here is a fan of Tourist Trap?
Chuck Connors. Yeah, love that movie. Mike's shaking his head.
I like Chuck Connors, but I've never seen that movie.
Yeah, we'll have to add that to the
list. That's funny. Mm.
Oh my God. All right. So the next story they had was Lucy Comes to Stay. Basically, Dr. Martin is introduced to Barbara, a pretty but distracted looking girl in her early 20s. She asks if he's his lawyer because she insists she didn't do the crime that got her committed to the asylum. But instead, it was someone named Lucy who did it. And in her story, Barbara's being taken care of by, she's obviously mentally ill to begin with. She's being taken care of by a lady named Miss Higgins, who's a paid nurse, who's paid to be there by her brother. She lives with her brother. When Barbara's left alone in the house, her friend Lucy appears and urges her to escape, but she's a bad influence. She's always telling her to do all these bad things. She's suggesting that George wants to have her committed so he can gain possession of her house. And later, she kills both George and Miss Higgins so that Barbara can escape. And then in the insane asylum, all points lead to Barbara, and she's like, no, I'm innocent. But then she turns over and looks at the mirror and she sees Lucy's reflection. And she's like, look, she's right there in the reflection. And we hear Barbara laughing maniacally. A lot of maniacal laughter in these movies.
A lot.
Asylums. Oh, my God. So, of course, we've got the beautiful Britt Eklund played Lucy. And it was funny because when I was watching this, I'm like, I wanted to say it was Elke Summer. I'm like, that's not Elke Summer because Elke Summer has an accent. And then finally it dawned on me it was Britt Eklund.
That's Mrs. Rod Stewart, Britt Eklund.
Right. Yeah.
Not anymore. She's not married to Rod Stewart.
So what do you guys think about this particular story?
I think I figured out that it was an imaginary friend at a certain point. Like at first I was like, where did this woman come from? And then the more she was like a bad influence on her, I was like, oh, I didn't think of it as like her alter ego. Like I guess at one point, the woman who's in the asylum, because she sees herself in the mirror, she sees the other woman in the mirror. So maybe she imagined that Lucy was not only her friend, but then I guess during the murder, she felt like she was Lucy.
Yeah.
And so then she's like, oh, Lucy did it. I didn't do it. Da, da, da. But yeah, I liked that. I thought that was a well done one.
Yeah. I really appreciated this movie because, like, I think it was last month I had watched a movie with Halle Berry where she suffered from, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, where she suffers from, I think, postpartum depression and split personality disorder, and I think it's called Gothica. I can't remember the name of that.
Oh, I remember that one now. Yeah, I did see that.
I appreciated this because in my mind, it's so great, when you learn about these movies because you can see where perhaps someone's creativity may have been sparked. And this for me was a dead ringer for Gothica. You guys can shoot me if you like, but I thought,
what's your address? I'll be right there.
Oh, come on here. I can't say that because we don't know who we have watching, there's some crazy.
Yeah.
I almost did.
We can shoot him, not you guys. No, listeners don't count.
That's right, you guys. But I enjoyed that. I enjoy anything where you cannot tell if you're crazy or not, because as adults, we have that happen to us so often, where you'll set something down and you'll say, shit, I know I put this somewhere. Like, did I not put this somewhere? Was there a ghost in here? Even with our temperament, sometimes, you wake up and you're just pissy for no reason. And then, a couple seconds later, you're in a great mood. So I'm for movies like this where you can't tell if you've quite gone mad. So this was one of my favorite scenes.
Nice. And Dantes, by the way, on the Facebook Fright Lounge page, one of your fans, Jesse Blair, posted, "Hey, Dantes Alexander, Fright Lounge, where do you find these old ads? So cool." Bill and I just looked them up online. There's I have a subscription to newspapers.com, and I used to also go to newspaperarchives.org, I think, and I don't go there anymore because it's too expensive. Bill?
Google has a free one too. There's a Google newspaper archive. It's really hard to use though. You really have to it's clunky, and it's not easy to save the ads if you want to keep them from there.
Right.
I recommend newspapers.com if you want to do a deep dive on newspaper ads. God, that's something I started 10 years ago and I'm still doing it.
Yeah. And it's
It
one of
doesn't
those
let
rabbit
go.
holes. Once you start going down it, you can't stop, and then you look up and you're like, oh shit, I gotta do other things.
Yeah. Real life beckons.
That was a good question, Jess, whatever his name is.
Jesse
Sorry,
Blair.
Jesse. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And we also had another April Green said she loves this movie, so that's awesome. All right, and speaking of mannequins, the fourth story in this, I think it's the fourth one, right? Yeah, we're on the fourth. Mannequins of Horror. And the guy Martin interviews Dr. Byron, played as we mentioned by Herbert Lom from the Pink Panther films, who declares his mastery of neurology and other branches of the discipline, and he appears to hold Rutherford in contempt. Initially, he's elated by the chance to speak with a new colleague, and he explains that he's become interested in a new direction of research, which involves the assembly of small dolls said to contain all organs and abilities of a human body. And he claims that with concentration, he can transfer his spirit into one of the dolls. So, but he sees that Martin's a little upset, disconcerted by this whole thing. So he abruptly concludes the interview and sends him on his way.
Pick me, pick me, pick me.
Yeah.
Pick me.
The new doctor has completed his acquaintance of all patients. He returns downstairs to deliver his judgment to Rutherford. And this story was later loosely adapted for the Monsters episode Mannequins of Horror. Dantes, what did you want to say?
Puppet Master. Like, these are all movies that some of these movies, like this movie, I have not seen. So it's always great when I find something that I haven't seen that just always reminds me of something. Like when I saw that, first thing I thought of was Puppet Master. There's quite a few movies where I even think, excuse me, my brain is moving a little slow. Tales from the Hood. Have you guys ever seen that? It was more like a comedy horror type of film. And there was a scene in that movie where the slaves' souls were transferred into like little dolls or whatever. So I feel like I'm going to be the Paula Abdul of everything tonight.
Is going to come jumping up behind you, Boogie?
Wait, there they are. No, but seriously, guys, like you guys really have to. It's hard to pick, though. Like all of these stories were good. It's hard to pick, but if I have to choose, and I know you're not asking me, Rigor, to choose, but this one, damn, it's so hard. I'm gonna go with this one, and the reason why I'm gonna go with this one as the best story is I am sort of thinking about transferring my conscience into a doll right now. And the reason why I'm thinking about doing that is so I can be in more than one place at a time. And then I can just send out my little creatures to kill people that I physically want to kill. Can I say that on this show?
Sure.
Okay, sorry.
Well, Michael just said he was going to send someone to shoot you. So,
if it's my kill, then that's fine.
I was gonna do it myself, but
I was thinking over Xbox or like PlayStation 5 or something.
Oh, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for clarifying. I mean, we're not being asked to pick, but if I had to, I would go with the freezer, the one with the freezer and the body parts. I really liked that one.
Yeah, I would agree. That's my favorite too. But like I said, it stuck with me since I was 2, so I kind of have a bias.
that was the one that I would say is my favorite segment out of this movie, which I think out of the 3 movies that we picked for tonight, I kind of feel like this one is the weakest out of the 3 because it was already starting to get a little bit. I mean, I know this was 72, but these stories don't really have the same kind of ironic twist that the ones in Tales from the Crypt do. And I don't know, I feel like with this one, it was just sort of like outtakes from other stuff that they use, like these stories. It really didn't, none of them are really all that like twisty or gut punchy, except for that first one with the dismembered body part. Then they show you that one first. Like if they had made that the last one, it probably would have had a little more impact. Because I think the one with Britt Eklund and Charlotte Rampling, I mean, I saw that coming a mile away. I'm like, there's only one person. They That chick is not real. So even when I was a little kid too, I think when I first saw it, I was like, that's her. Of course it's her. And of course it was her. So I don't know, but I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying out of the three movies, it's the weakest that I would say. And the body part segment, the A1 story of the night, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So are we good? Do we need a break? Or
I don't know. We lost Michael. He went away.
maybe he's taking a break. And Dantes too.
I know, but Michael's camera disappeared completely.
Oh,
It's not even
I
on
guess
the.
he fell out of the thing.
Oh yeah, he fell out completely. Yeah.
Let me if he doesn't rejoin.
He may have lost connectivity.
Yeah. That reminds me, folks. There's Michael. Would you fall out of the connection, Michael?
Yeah.
By the way, on the
Yeah.
Facebook page, Aaron Diego said that the Aaron's favorite segment is the body part segment also. So thank you, Aaron Diego, for that comment.
The really messed up thing about that one is that the woman accidentally injures herself while she's trying to like fight off the, she like turns the hatchet to like, hack at the hand that's on her face, and she ends up injuring herself. So that was very unexpected.
And when she's trying to hit the body part, she's the worst. She doesn't hit one of them.
She sucks.
It has to literally be on her face for her to, and even then, her face is all hacked up.
And you don't even have to like actually hit it or stab it; just kick it away from you, and then it has to work. Then it has to take the time to come back where you are.
Well, I always took it to mean that they weren't really there. Like the body parts may have not have. They may have just been a figment of her imagination.
Oh, a pigment of her imagination. Interesting.
Maybe. I don't know.
The only criticism
I don't write this shit.
The only criticism I had about that, it's not really a criticism, but what I was expecting, when you knew right away from the beginning when you didn't see her face, her back was towards you, that there was something with her face.
Yeah.
When she turned around, I just expected a big, large axe gash in her face.
Yeah.
Instead, there were like these three little lines.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, maybe she wasn't hitting herself that hard with it, but I would have expected like a Friday the 13th kind of level gash.
Yeah. She was a bad swing.
I'm just looking over. I just quickly looked over the Then Is Now group because I forgot that we have it live on there too.
Oh, damn. Sorry. I forgot about that.
No, it's all right. I just remembered it myself, but there's no comments, at least.
Okay.
But between the two of us, keep our eyes on it. And I did want to warn folks, supposedly there's a giant wind and rainstorm coming my way in Maine. So if we lose connection, that's why.
Exciting.
All right. So next up, we have Tales from the Crypt, also from 1972. And this one is comprised of short stories that were originally presented in the Tales from the Crypt comic book from the 1950s, written by Al Fedelstein, Johnny Craig, and Bill Gaines. And Bill Gaines, I think, wasn't he the publisher, or he was the creative force behind all those horror comics, the EC comics?
I had to look those up honestly after watching this one because excuse me, my dumbass. Obviously, I thought that Tales from the Crypt existed when I came out the vagina, which was in the 90s. So this was very enlightening for me. It really was, because I'm like, oh, Tales from the Crypt existed long before then.
Yeah. Oh my god! And we had Ralph Richardson played the Crypt Keeper, and I think people were. I think you guys were expecting the Crypt Keeper from the TV
yes,
show,
right? we talked about this when we were in the back before the show. Like I said, being familiar with that iconic TV show, like I of course expected, the Crypt Keeper and like the creepy music going down to the lower level of the house and all of that. I think this movie really stayed true to the ethos of what the original comic books were, probably more so than what I'm familiar with. The Crypt Keeper skeleton guy. Like this was very, moral of the story, and I loved it because everybody got it. Well, I'm just gonna say everybody got fucked. I enjoy movies like that where there's not like a happy ending, and I think the most shocking one though for me probably was the Santa Claus murderer.
Yeah.
Um, just because of like how easy it is to see Santa Claus right now. Like, not even joking, guys. Like, before I logged on, like, I left out of like the Goodwill store, and of course, what do you know? There's Santa Claus asking me if I want to give money. So that one was a little frightening to me. So
Yeah, that one I remember as a kid. That frightened me too. But I'm trying to find a picture of what the Crypt Keeper from the comics looks like, and so it's just running slow here because I got so many tabs open.
Couldn't understand. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's pretty much what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think that is how he looks in the comics.
No,
he's very normal in the comics, right?
Actually, he looks like it from the movies, not from the '90s TV show.
Yeah.
And if
I was glad that it wasn't that fucking puppet. Like when I started watching the movie, and it was like, at first I thought, oh, maybe this isn't affiliated with the other Tales from the Crypt because like I didn't see him, but I was glad not to see him. I always thought he was. I mean, I get that it was like a shtick, it was a thing, but I don't know.
There were other comic book hosts for anthology comics, horror comics, like Secrets of the Haunted House, and they did look like the Crypt Keeper from the '90s, Tales from the Crypt, like they were talking skeletons and everything. But I think the original Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt was a little bit more like, sinister, but like more Vincent Price-esque.
And I thought that was honestly refreshing, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, because you remember like how in your face like the '90s Crypt Keeper was. Like he was like they tried to make him like a mix of like Fred Krueger mixed with my God, my brain, guys, sorry. How does it go? Good evening. What is his name, guys? Crap.
Which one?
Which
It's not the Twilight Zone. He did the Birds.
Oh, Alfred Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock Hour. Yeah, so it was like, to me, the '90s Crypt Keeper is like a mixture of Fred Krueger meets Alfred Hitchcock, and sometimes that can be really annoying.
Hey, greetings, boys and ghouls.
And you're right.
I do love
He does
him.
look exactly like he did look exactly like this iteration of the Crypt Keeper. He totally did.
This is how he was in the comics back in the '50s.
Oh, well, then he didn't look like Sir Ralph Richardson.
Well, no, he looked like Sir Ralph Richardson if he had like leprosy or something. And that's the one from the '90s that
Yeah.
I did like a total tangent. We don't have to go into it, but we should cover it in the future. The Tales from the Crypt movie Demon Knight with William Sadler and Jada Pinkett Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I had to watch it after watching this. I mean,
that movie's amazing.
It's not bad.
So there's
I saw that theatrically.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
I loved it. All right, so let's get back over to my notes here. I think I stopped sharing, right? It went away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a thought about one of the stories in this.
Sure.
Like, okay, all the people who ended up in the crypt and we went through their stories. They were all bad people who had like done terrible things. They were being punished, and then at the end they all went to hell. But the one I didn't really understand was the monkey's paw story, where the woman wished that they had a lot of money, and then guy got in the accident, and then I wish him back to life. What the hell did he do wrong? How did he end up in hell? And like, why was he being punished? He didn't.
Oh, that was awful, wasn't it? Oh my!
He didn't do anything. Like, and neither did she. Really, she had good intentions, but was like,
no, there was something with the insurance policy that he did. Like, there was some kind of like shady business that he got mixed up in with his insurance policy or his business.
I didn't catch that. Okay.
But I really don't. I think it was more the wife's sin in that one. Like, she was the one who was just, completely nobody could reach her and talk her out of this.
She was so
a bad
stupid.
Idea.
She really was. She really was.
Like, all she had to do with the second wish was not use the word immediately.
Right.
I want him the way he was before the accident. That's all she had to say. But she said immediately before the accident, and that completely changed the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was
That
like, you
that
dumb cunt.
was just so awful. Like
Oh,
that
yeah.
scene, I had to like I felt bad for him. I really
Yeah.
like I really empathized with the character. I'm like, holy cow, like he's literally dying over and over and over. Like
Yeah, that's fucked
Idiot,
up.
he's got embalming fluid in his veins.
Suffering is so much worse than death. Like anytime I hear people in a story or in a movie going, "There's nothing worse than death," I guess there is.
Yeah,
Perpetual
yeah.
suffering is worse than death.
Death is a piece of cake. Getting dead is the scary part.
So that segment was called "Wish You Were Here." It was originally presented in the comic book taken from I'm sorry, The Haunt of Fear, number 22 from 1953. It was written. It was a variation of W.W. Jacobs's short story called The Monkey's Paw. So it's basically the same thing. I almost think that, in answer to your question, Michael, that the sin, quote unquote, was that the husband was like, "Oh, we're not supposed to be using this thing because bad things will happen to those who do," and then she uses it anyways, and then and just keeps getting deeper and deeper because she can't,
Yeah.
Get it.
That's another reason why I was sympathetic to him, because he was being cautious and she was like, "Oh, I wish blah, 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 blah." He's like, "What are you doing? Stop it. I just told you not to do that." "Oh, well, it's not going to work anyway." It's like, yeah, but that's not the point. The point is don't tempt fate, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I wish I had another stick of
And
butter.
don't make a wish when you're emotional. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just joking. I said, I wish I had another stick of butter. Oh, damn. You know what I would do though? If I was presented with 3 wishes, right?
Don't say it.
First of all, I wouldn't say it, but I'll tell you what I would do. I'm not going to say what the wish would be, because
No, okay.
I would take a piece of paper and I would write everything out on that I want. And then I would say, I wish for everything on this piece of paper to be true.
Well, you better dot your I's and cross your T's, because there's always some way for it to get fucked up.
I know.
Right.
You're not paying attention.
No, I
Reborn.
hate it when people say, "Well, if I had 3 wishes, the first thing I would wish for is more wishes." It's like, no, you're missing the whole fucking point. The whole point of that kind of thing is like, where are your priorities? Not how to finagle a way to use the 3 wishes in a way to multiply each other and get more wishes out of it. Like, what it's like something you ask somebody when you're drinking. Like, what would you do if you could have one superpower? Or what, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be? If you just say like, "Well, I want unlimited wishes," like, all right, fuck you. You just killed the whole point of this conversation. But I thought you were going to say you would type it out and then go back through it and like edit it until it was the clearest version of the requests.
Right. Yeah. No, it would just be a handful of things, it wouldn't be extra wishes, obviously. But
okay.
So let me backtrack a second here. First of all, I just want to say we had a fan named Nina who it looks like, I can't really see the emojis, but it looks like it's a monkey and some paw prints. So that's awesome.
The monkey's paw.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Nina. So the wraparound story, as we mentioned, it's basically these people are touring catacombs for some reason, and these 5 strangers stumble into a room where the mysterious crypt keeper is, and he details how each one of them is going to die. So we've got the first story, which was "And All Through the House," which stars the always beautiful Joan Collins.
Can I just say, before you start the story, how hot Joan Collins was?
Oh my God.
What?
Compared to how she looked in Dynasty. In Dynasty, it looked like someone shot her in the face with a makeup gun. Like,
I thought she was hot in Empire of the Ants. She was great, beautiful in that movie.
I don't find her attractive at all.
Well, I mean, like, not like you want to like take her home and put her to bed attractive, but like she looked normal. Like you have to understand.
Oh,
she looked normal. She wasn't Dynasty Joan, like full of cakey makeup.
She was a real woman.
Yes, it was nice to see her with her real hair. Can I just say that? Like,
there's a great movie from '74 that she was in called Dark Places. If you want to see hot Joan Collins, like she was super hot in that movie. I think she was already like well into her 30s, so she wasn't like a young chicken anymore, and she still had it. She was. But it
was really refreshing to see her methodically plan out that evening. and to get her just desserts. I thought she was the dessert.
I love her house. Oh, that house is so fucking cool, especially that whole Christmas room that she has set up with the Christmas tree. I love it. And when she spills bright red paint, I mean blood on the carpet.
Oh, that was great, wasn't it?
It was so obviously like tempera paint or something, but it was like you just got to go with it, you know. Like
Did
I
you
was like,
guys,
it
did you
looks so
guys,
fake, but I was like, all right.
did you guys fall out of your chairs laughing when she put the paint in the cup?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck are you doing? That
was weird.
makes no sense.
She really
at
was
all.
not a good murderer.
I mean, she
Murderess.
was really trying to seal the scene, though. I mean, she really was, going for authenticity. She wanted to make sure that there was blood, sprinkled around his hand everywhere.
She did, yes, that's true.
So this is what we would call now a snapped TV candidate. Like she is the precursor to what we now see on Snapped. She had the man's dinner ready. She shot him. So it was so quick though. He was so comfortable, relaxed. He had his paper.
Did she shoot him or did she stab him in the head? I forget.
She hit him in the head.
Oh, really? Oh, shoot. Okay. Sorry, guys.
I don't know.
I don't know why I thought it was like a shot, because it just happened like so fast, and I saw the blood squirt, and there was blood on the paper, and he was on the floor.
If you blinked,
If she shot him, the daughter would have heard it and come to check out what was going on.
That's true.
Yeah, she bashed him with a fire poker.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, the premise is she kills her husband with the fire poker. Oh, do we even know why she killed him?
She wanted the money. She wanted the life insurance
policy.
And meanwhile, you hear on the radio there's a homicidal maniac dressed as Santa Claus out, or attacking. I don't know, on the loose for whatever reason. He goes to her house and he starts trying to break in. And of course, the little girl, the daughter, Carol, she thinks he's the real Santa Claus and unlocks the window and lets him in. And of course, he strangles Joan to death. But there's one amazing shot. I thought, well, no, there was a lot of good shots in all these movies, but the one in particular I'm thinking of is there's a scene where you see it's like the lower half of the wall, right? So it's this like windowsill, and above it's the window, and then below it is like the wall, and she's down trying to call for help on the phone, and the camera angle is up, and you see the evil Santa Claus peering in. It was a great shot.
Yeah. That's that could have been a poster. Like, it's such a cool image.
And I noticed in this one, and even in Vault of Horror, they did a lot of like Dutch angles and comic book style angles in some of their shots, which was cool.
Yeah, they were still keeping for it wasn't so over the top as Creep Show, but they did get a few sly images in there, as you said.
So overall, what did we think of this one? The strength of this one, was it a strong one or predictable or what?
Again, with Santa Claus, anytime you pervert Santa Claus, it's going to get some type of reaction. And this was a total flip your head moment for me. I wasn't expecting the murderer to be so jolly looking either. I was expecting him to be sort of disheveled, like he really looked like Santa Claus. So that really scared me. So for me, I would give this, had I actually watched this as a child, I would be like scared shitless because of Santa Claus. So I'm gonna say this is well, yeah, man. Like as a kid, dude, it didn't take much.
Yeah, okay, right. As a kid, but even now, you seem so like freaked out by the idea of Jolly Santa being a killer, and it's like it's been done so many times.
It's been done a lot of times, but when you see positive reinforcement of characters over and over and over, and you see it, juxtaposed as like this fucking maniac, yeah, it's gonna rub you the wrong way, and for that exact reason, I think this for me is probably. No, I don't know. It's hard, but this was a good story too. The guy dying over and over in his own fucking coffin. You can't beat that.
Yeah. Well, Dantes, have you ever seen Silent Night, Deadly Night?
No, I keep hearing about this too.
We talked about that last Christmas, and yeah, that's worth seeing. It's actually a surprisingly better slasher film than we remembered it being, or at least I remembered it being. But
Yeah, that aroused a shitstorm of controversy in
Really?
the mid 80s. It was, oh yeah, because a major distributor put it out. It was TriStar, acquired that movie for distribution, and TriStar was really highbrow, so here was this like supposedly big name company putting out a movie like Silent Night, Deadly Night, and people were so offended that Santa Claus was depicted as a homicidal maniac in it. There was one woman that kickstarted the whole thing. She was watching the Super Bowl or something with her husband, and this commercial came on for Silent Night, Deadly Night, and she was just really blown away by this, and she couldn't deal with it. She was like, "What if our children had been in the room?" And she was like, "Okay, the kids weren't even there for
Then
one
you say,
thing."
"Oh, it's just a movie. Ignore it."
Yeah, like
Yeah.
she was offended by it. Like it wasn't like her kids were like, "Mommy, it was Santa with an axe," but she like it snowballed. And this was in the 80s where it was hard to get a movement like that going. One of those transient like memes that people get behind for really no reason other than this, like it just like strikes at something in them. There were candlelight vigils everywhere, like people protesting when
You
this
gotta be
movie
shitting me.
opened, and TriStar pulled out. They like dropped it like a like a hot potato.
Gosh,
Really?
I can see
Yeah,
that happening though, like back then, totally, because I really
yeah.
can.
I
Yeah.
lucked out because my parents took me to see it before it got pulled from the theaters.
How long was
Mhm.
it out before it got pulled? Like
Like
a
a week
month
or two.
or
It was
week?
just a
Oh,
couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
it didn't completely go away.
Yeah.
But TriStar took it mostly out of commission, and not before they made a whole bunch of money on it.
Right.
And in a couple of months, another distributor picked it up and put it out. I think 21st Century, which I believe we saw some releases from Dynamite releasing. They were the ones that put out House of Crazies. I think Dynamite could have been a subsidiary of 21st Century, or like they turned into 21st Century. I'm gonna have to go back and check my movie distributor lore.
Interesting. And just a quick side note, Dantes, if you want a really good Santa Claus movie that you'll like, that's not a horror movie, well, kind of not a horror movie, Violent Night is amazing. It's basically Die Hard with Santa Claus as the main character. It's fucking awesome. Have you guys seen that?
Silent Night.
Mike Kill, have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, it's the guy that plays Sheriff Hopper on
Stranger
Stranger
Things.
Things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Santa Claus, and he's the real Santa Claus, and he ends up having to fight these like bad guys. It's insane. It's so
What's
good.
the one that was made recently with Mel Gibson, the Fat Man or something,
Oh, I
where
think
he
I haven't
where he was
seen that.
like,
I want to see that.
Man,
Batman.
what is that? What am I missing?
and
I
the
like the
trailer
sound
made
of
it look
that.
like that he was like a retired Santa, and then shit started to hit the fan in some way, and he sort of came out and as like a badass, like using his superheroish, I mean his supernatural, whatever magical Santa-ness to against the bad guys or some crazy
Here we
shit
go.
like that.
This is it. Yeah, it's Mel Gibson. To save his declining business, Chris Kringle, also known as Santa Claus, is forced into a partnership with the U.S. military. Making matters worse, Chris gets locked into a deadly battle of wits against a highly skilled assassin hired by a precocious 12-year-old after receiving a lump of coal in his stocking. That's awesome.
And what's it called? Is it called
Fat Man.
like
One word.
Fat Man?
Like Batman, only Fat Man.
Fat Man.
There's also that French film from the late 80s that Home Alone was based on. It's called Dial Code Santa Claus.
Oh yeah.
It's about a little boy defending his home against Santa Claus, who is actually somebody that's out to kill him.
Oh man. All right. Oh, that's my notes here for a second. All right. So let me jump over quickly to the movie ads for this one so we don't forget, and then we'll continue on with the short films. What are we doing now? Tales from the Crypt. And do that. And once that comes up, I will share the screen. There was something I was going to say, and it'll come to me eventually. I can't see 'cause the camera's like.
Thanks to everyone who's watching on Facebook. I still haven't seen the Then Is Now Facebook, but on
I've been looking at it. I haven't seen anything.
on the Fright Lounge Facebook, we've got Frank Polvino watching too. So thank you.
Nice. And he says that in regards, I would assume to the Tales from the Crypt segment, are we sure it wasn't Santa? And he says checking off his naughty list. You never know, anything's
Definitely.
possible.
I don't trust Santa.
I never knew anything about Krampus until like 2 years ago, and then when I heard about him, I was
Are
like,
you-
"That's awesome!"
Oh my God, dude, Krampus will blow your mind. It's great.
Like not just that one movie, but like the concept of him.
Yeah.
Don't you
But
just love when Christmas is perverted? Oh, I love it. It's so sacrilegious. Oh,
You guys are gonna laugh. I heard about Krampus before it became a hugely popular thing a few years ago, not too long ago. I'm gonna say like 7 years ago, because there was a character in General Hospital that basically took over the hospital Christmas celebration, and she was dressed up as Krampus and came down and told the story of Krampus. And I had to look it up. I was like, wait, is this a real thing? And then all of a sudden they started making movies out of it and everything.
Yeah, I saw a couple, 2 different movies about him.
Yeah.
And I think it was after Roger, you told me what he was, because I kept
Yeah.
seeing Krampus. I'm like, what the fuck is Krampus?
Basically the anti-Santa.
Yeah.
You have to go work in the coal mines if you're bad.
And I love it. I love punishment. People that act badly should be punished. So I like that.
Bill and Mike, last year, did we also talk about rare exports? The Swedish or the movie from Finland, I think, where they find Santa Claus buried in the ice.
I don't know.
I don't
Oh.
think we did.
I don't
We'll
think
have
so.
to cover that one because that's a really fun Christmas.
Yeah.
story.
That sounds far
Sounds
out.
really familiar though.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, so here we go. This one is from the San Antonio Express. Death lives in the vault of horror, yet it's Tales from the Crypt. Obviously, before they knew they were making a vault of horror movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they got a little wishy-washy with the title of the Vault of Horror, as we'll see later.
Right, yeah. Right. And then this played with The House That Dripped Blood, which was another Amicus film. And another one from Bailey. This is one of yours, Bill?
Yes.
And is this London or England also?
No, this is from South Carolina.
Oh,
I
Rated
forget.
PG?
Yeah. It was rated PG.
I think they all were, weren't they? Except for Asylum's first run.
Yeah, Asylum was rated R, I'm pretty sure. And then they edited some footage out to get a PG for the House of Crazies re-rating.
Right.
Or maybe Asylum was re-rated at right when it was released. I'm not sure.
Maybe that's why the blood looked like paint, because they usually if like don't they in some movies deliberately make the blood not look like real blood because they're
Yeah.
It doesn't seem as violent if it doesn't look very real.
Exactly.
And we got from the San Antonio Express, from the Five Town Twin, which is cool. Also
It's
playing
beautiful. I included this because it's just
absolutely
beautiful.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I have to agree.
I love it. And that's the cover on the book, on the novel, but I think the novelization, I should say, but I think, was that the original cover on the novelization, the skull?
It is, yeah.
This one's from the Akron Beacon Journal. Oh, I think I pulled this one together. I just wanted to show you guys what else was playing, because they also re-released The Night of Living Dead, and Twins of Evil came out that year, 72, or was it 71? It might have been 71. And
I want to see women in cages.
And yes. That's Pam Grier's in that one, right?
I believe so.
It's like it just sounds like one of those terrible porn movies or soft porn movies, like
It's a trendy women in prison movie.
Right.
Yeah, like kind
They
of
were hot at the time. The big bird cage, the big dollhouse.
The hot
Yeah.
iron box right there. The frogs are coming on Wednesday.
Yep, this was 72.
Yeah.
This must have been like around April of 72, because that's when Frogs was released.
Yeah.
Hands of the Ripper.
Yeah. And what was the other one I saw? I guess that was it. I was gonna say something about women in prison movies, but I forgot. All right. Anyways, next one. Again, Tales from the Crypt. This one's from the Boston Globe.
The same picture again.
Yeah, it's pretty much same thing with Asylum. There had the same one. Now what's this one? Fright with Susan George and Honor Blackman.
Oh, you've never seen that movie?
No,
It's one of the original Babysitter in Peril films.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Susan George is a babysitter, and she goes to this babysitting assignment, and it just so happens that the wife's ex-husband is this lunatic who's been locked in an asylum for years, and he escaped. And he's like goes back to the house to get, because his son still lives there, and he wants his son. And madness ensues. Fright. Check it out.
Madness ensues.
Honor Blackman. All I can think of is, who would have guessed that a novelty song that Honor Blackman and Patrick McNee made called Kinky Boots would get turned into like a major musical.
Oh, that's what you're gonna say before? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a novelty song. Kinky Boots. All right, and then this one here, of course, I can't read the whole thing because the
Hey, beauty there.
if someone can read the bottom there, because
I can't.
Retribution. Robin Phillips plays a man who no, don't make it bigger. I can't see it. Oh, okay. There you go. There you go. Retribution. Robin Phillips plays a man who terrorized another into suicide and is in turn visited by his dead victim in the film Tales from the Crypt.
That's cool.
Yep.
And then here we go. We've got
cool. That was such a sad story, that one.
I know.
Yeah.
How they made him kill himself. Like, what a fucking asshole. Like,
after just 2 Valentines. I always thought he did it pretty easily. He only opened 2 of them.
Yeah. That was just terrible.
But he knew.
So we've got this Cool Breeze, which is a cool blaxploitation film, and you've got Tales from the Crypt starts Friday.
There's The Hospital, best screenplay, Patty Chayefsky.
Oh, that's The Hospital. Okay, because George C. Scott, that's a good movie.
After the hospital comes The Asylum.
Right. Okay, I didn't. Okay. Yeah, because Quentin Tarantino talked about that on his podcast. And we got another one. Oh, and this guy was in it. That's Roy Dotrice. You guys may remember him as Father from the Beauty and the Beast TV show with Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton.
Yes.
Recognize him right away. He's so one of those.
I didn't remember. I didn't know what I recognized him from, but yes, you're right. That is him. Yeah.
Can someone read the bottom?
Beauty and the Beast.
Fright Night. Roy Dotrice finds Richard Green suffering the tortures of the damned in the horror film Tales from the Crypt, directed by Freddie Francis and beginning Friday at Music Hall.
Nice. This was also from the Boston Globe. But yeah, Beauty and the Beast was a great show. The Ron Perlman makeup as Vincent was just awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember Linda Hamilton's appearance on Saturday Night Live, where it was right after Terminator 2, but there was this recurring character played by Ellen Cleghorn, and she was like a security agent at NBC, and she would stop all the guest hosts and like want to talk to them, and she believed all their roles were real. Her name was Zoraida, and she's like, "Oh my God, Linda Hamilton, when you lay down with the beast, did you get fleas?" And Linda Hamilton's like, "No, he's not a beast. He's Ron Perlman."
I just remember the one where she kept moving her head and she created a hurricane and destroyed the place they were in.
Great show.
Geez, I really haven't watched Saturday Night Live since then because it has not been funny in decades. But I do remember they had Toonces the cat, and there was like they did a Terminator spoof, and Toonces is driving.
That was the episode. That was one of the first things in the episode. The Toonsinator.
That's right.
It's amazing the stupid shit that they do on shows like that people find hysterical. Then you go back and look at it, and you're like, this was so funny at the time, but now looking at it, it's like, what? How ridiculous is this? Like the insult comic dog on Conan.
Oh, I love Triumph.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, the poop on. I mean, he was hysterical.
Where he goes to the hot dog shop where they're mean to you. I love that one.
And then you try to show it to somebody who's never seen it, and they're like, "Why was this so hysterical?" As he says, for me to poop on every time. So
it's funny.
it's great.
Every time.
We love it. Why?
The best was when he was in the line for people waiting to see one of the new Star Wars films, the prequel films, and he's making fun of all the cosplayers. And there's the dude in the Darth Vader outfit, and he looks at his chest and he goes, "Which one of these buttons calls your parents to pick you up?"
I
Right.
liked him a lot. He was great.
Next we've got another one from the Boston Globe, and I think I just picked this is what do you call it?
Wow.
Tales from the Crypt is not in there, but just look at that lineup. Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, Night of the Living Dead, and Something Weird.
Oh, Straw Dogs. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Frankenstein's Bloody Terror is amazing. And in certain places, it doesn't say it in the ad, but it was 3D. It was like 70 millimeter 3D, which I would love to go see. Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, which is amazing. Frankenstein's Bloody Terror might make you think the Frankenstein monster is in it. It isn't.
He's not. It's a Paul Naschy film, right?
Yeah, it's a werewolf movie, and there are 2 vampires in it, but there is no Frankenstein.
Okay.
I just have to ask though that they shoot horses, don't they?
Sometimes.
Sometimes it's necessary, yeah.
Only when they're old.
Or they break a leg.
But yeah, that would be an awesome triple feature. Look at that.
That's why none of the horses ever became like stage actors that were like successful at all, because before the performance people would say break a leg, and then they would break their leg, and then the horse is useless after that. They got to shoot him, take him out back and shoot him. It's really tragic. They don't have equal opportunity in that industry.
All right, and then we've got another one from the Los Angeles Times.
Los Angeles.
You'll be left reeling. Nothing is left to the imagination. For horror, I can't recall a film so filled with it. Juicy terror.
Judith Christ. Wow, she's going all in on that review, huh?
I know, huh? I read some bad reviews on these movies too. It's so funny.
Oh yeah, there's always a mixture. It's really, yeah.
This one's
even movies that are like universally loved. Like I was showing the Shawshank Redemption to one of my classes a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it's everyone I know is like, that movie's phenomenal. But as I was looking through just general stuff about it, I found like there have been some reviews of critics who hated it.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, there's always somebody who hates it.
It's such an iconic film.
It's amazing.
This one's from Pittsburgh.
What?
This ad you're showing is from Pittsburgh.
Yes, this one's from Pittsburgh.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Yes, you did.
Going on a tangent. I was just going to say, I really love Shawshank Redemption, but I've seen it too many times, and I can't. Maybe at least another 10 years before I can watch it again.
Yeah, you get saturated. Yeah,
too many. And then I put this one in. Of course, Bill's not here now. He's probably taking a quick break. This is not related, but it was playing in the same time frame as this movie, and I hadn't heard. Well, I guess I had heard of Daughters of Darkness, but I have not heard of Tower of the Screaming Maidens.
That's a new one. I haven't heard of this either.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
At first, when you first showed the picture, I thought it was a woman wearing like a snug, slinky dress.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh no, it's like a stone tower.
She's wearing a tower.
Like at a quick glance, because her hair was going down, so I thought it was like curved.
Yeah.
And yeah, but oh no, now I realize it's not.
Oh no, on the Facebook page, Sherry Davis said, did we miss Tales from the Crypt? Yes, unfortunately, we just talked. Actually, no, we're in the middle of talking about it right now, Sherry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're in the middle of it.
So we just took a break and we're showing the movie ads from it, and we're waiting for Bill to come back. So
we took a break from talking about the story segments to look at these things.
Doing the ads, but
we're going to return to that.
We'll come back to this picture because I want to show it to Bill, but he's not here.
Super love shockers.
Love shocker.
I can't. So, did the kids like it, Michael? You didn't answer.
Oh,
do they like what?
Gosh, what movie were we just?
Oh, Shawshank. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're not really. Well, I mean, they're like 16, 17, but yeah, they were all like, is this so funny? Anytime I want to show them anything that's like was made before they were born, they're like, oh, God. And I'm like, trust me, this movie's awesome. And like we watched it, and I turned the lights on, and it was like nobody said a word, and I was like, was good, right? And they're
Kind
like,
of
yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
first time I saw that movie, I saw that movie as a child, actually. So, and it just always has just been every time, every time you're scrolling through cable, you see it, you're like, oh, Shawshank, gotta stop.
And it's so ripe for like conversation questions to give the students afterward,
Yeah.
like why did he do this and what did he mean by that and how did they get around this and what does it mean when he says get busy living or get busy dying and what else can you apply that to and
That's
like I was
awesome.
like, oh, this is so great, like you just dig into this stuff.
The next
Yeah.
movie you should show them is Donnie Darko.
What's with
That's a mind bender.
They wouldn't get it.
No,
I didn't
How
get
old are they? You gotta give
I
them
didn't get it either. I was going to show them Memento, but I thought maybe that would be a little bit too much of a mind bender also.
Yeah. You could say
But maybe.
Yeah.
You're
They're
talking
actually pretty sharp. But,
oh wow. Okay, well.
yeah.
I don't know, man. That you get. I feel like you got to be doing like freshman year lit in order to get Donnie Darko.
Yeah, I was kidding.
Yeah. The funny thing is the first time I saw Donnie Darko was when I was flipping channels, dog sitting for somebody. And I came into the movie about 20-30 minutes late. And I watched it from that point to the end. And I kept thinking, oh, I must have missed something at the beginning that explains it all. Nope. I went back later, watched the entire thing. And I was like, it's just as cryptic as it was the first time around.
And Dantes, I don't know if you were aware of this, so if we talked about it, but Mike teaches English as a second language.
Yes, we talked about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's really a great way of teaching idioms and all those things, because watching a movie, colloquialisms.
Because a lot of them see, Hollywood movies, but there's like they only understand like 80% of it. There's a whole bunch of bits and pieces throughout. I'm like, do you know why he did that or what he meant when he said that? Or, it's great.
So let's talk about, of course, now we've lost Dantes and Bill. Oh, I think Bill's on his way back. Oh, good. Bill.
Hello.
Bill's on his way
I wanted
back.
to share this picture because I wanted you to tell us, I always say this. I think I've seen or heard at least of every horror movie out there, and I constantly find the ones that I have not. There's this one, which I have heard of, Daughters of Darkness. This was just happened to be playing at the same time in the theaters at the same time as Tales from the Crypt. But Tower of Screaming Maidens, I've never heard of. Can you tell us about either of these films?
It's not a horror film. It's like a pirate movie.
Oh,
and it was another European film like Daughters of Darkness, probably distributed by the same company out of the UK or maybe even in the States. Tower of Screaming Maidens was just another title that they had, that they just packaged these two movies together and they retitled it I don't even think they retitled it. I think it may have had a similar title originally. It was just they made it look like it was a horror film and it's not.
Oh, that's funny. Cool. All right.
Well, Tower of Screaming Virgins. That's the other title.
That's funny.
No, seriously, it is. Because you can see Maidens doesn't match the font of the rest of that logo up there, and that's why, because the original title was Tower of Screaming Virgins.
That's funny. Oh my god, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they say.
All right. So all right, so our second story in this, right? We did the Joan Collins. Yeah. So the second story is called Reflection of Death, which was taken from Tales from the Crypt, issue number 23 in April of 1951. Carl Maitland abandons his family to be with his secretary, Susan Blake. After they drive off together, they're involved in a car accident. He wakes up having been thrown clear of the wrecked and burned car and attempts to hitchhike home, but everybody he meets up with reacts with horror upon seeing him. Arriving at his house, he sees his wife with another man. He knocks on the door, but she screams and slams the door. Then he goes to see Susan, only to find that she's blind from the accident and said that Carl died 2 years ago. Glancing at a reflective tabletop, he sees he has a face of a rotting corpse and screams in horror. Carl then wakes up and finds out that it was all a dream, but the moment he does, the crash occurs, as we previously saw. So what'd you guys think of this one?
I really dig this one. I love the first person concept, is where you can't see what this person looks like until the very end. You know it's going to be bad.
I kept being like, what happened to him? Why, like, what's going on? But that really helped me feel like whatever made him look horrible had just happened, which is how he saw it. And then when he gets to them, it's like, oh, it's been 2 years or whatever, but the fact that they did that first person thing of people reacting to him made like I didn't even consider like, oh, time has passed. I just thought, oh, this is him, stumbling away from the wreckage, and he just looks like shit.
Right. That's what I thought too, that he'd just be bloody, not, rotted.
Yeah.
Dantes, we were just talking about the second story in Tales from the Crypt, the Reflection of Death, with the guy and his mistress in the car accident. And what do you think of that one?
Don't you just love your sweet comeuppance?
It's like abandoning his daughter too. I mean, what a jackass.
Don't you want to say goodbye to her? Oh yeah, right.
But it almost reminds me of the scene from Thinner. Do you remember the scene from Thinner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought about when I saw that. I love all of these.
Which scene?
The scene where they were in the car and they hit the gypsy woman.
Remember? Oh.
And they were fooling around in the car and la 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 and whatever. But this one was, I thought the makeup was a little cheesy.
Yeah.
Makeup was a little cheesy.
True.
I like the fact that the tale was, I don't know, the ending for this one wasn't as shocking. I saw it coming. I will say that. It wasn't as jarring or as shocking to me as the other tales, because by this point I think I have probably seen so many zombie movies. I think that's probably why I could not be shocked by that. You know what I mean? But other than that, I would give this story a solid 5 out of 5, because I love the ending. The ending.
I thought you were saying 5 out of 10.
Oh no.
5 out of 5.
Give it 5 out of 5. Just solid 5 out of 5. The ending was great. I saw it coming. That was the only thing I didn't like about this story. Compared to the other ones, I thought it could have been a little bit more, but yeah.
I have to say that you mentioned the makeup. I have to agree with you that the makeup is very sort of, not realistic at all. It's very ghoulish looking in a comic book way. It wouldn't be so noticeable if there wasn't another ghoul makeup in this movie that's so much creepier, which is the Peter Cushing segment that we haven't talked about yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We'll get to that in a second. I did think that when he woke up in the car and turned out it was all a dream, but then it was starting to happen in real life, and he leans over and grabs the wheel, and I couldn't recall what he had done the first time around, but I thought he was going to use that foreknowledge to avert the complete disaster of the accident, and maybe just, they'd still crash or something, but it wouldn't be as horrific,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
And they never say what happened to them. Oh no, never mind.
No, go
ahead. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
No.
But then he's in the pit with the Crypt Keeper.
Right.
Well, like I said, I saw that ending coming. Like I really did.
Yeah, we heard you. You're so smart. No, I'm kidding. Whenever somebody says that, oh, I saw that coming. It's like, all right, yes, you're wonderful and smart. Good for you. Shut up.
This almost reminds me of there was a scene in a movie. I can't remember what it was, but the guy goes, "Oh, I bet you were the brightest in your class," or something like that.
Anytime something like that, like what was that? What the Sixth Sense? Like,
I didn't see that coming though.
I didn't either. But I have I've talked to people who were like, "Oh yeah, I saw it coming a mile away." I'm like, well, then I enjoyed the movie more than you did.
Right?
It was so obvious. Oh, you're so fucking smart. Good for you.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
Anyway.
All right, so our next story in Tales from the Crypt is called Poetic Justice, which was taken from The Haunt of Fear, issue 12 from March of 1952. Basically, we've got this character, Elliot, a total douchebag. He's an unscrupulous young man who lives with his wealthy father, Edward, and he seeks to undermine the local neighborhood oddball, Grimsdyke, played by Peter Cushing, for no apparent reason. And ends up going a little too far, only to find himself on the receiving end of some poetic justice. as the title implies. On Valentine's Day, James sends Grimsdyke, I'm sorry, Elliot sends Grimsdyke a number of poison pen valentines, supposedly from the neighbors, which drives the old man to suicide. We had talked about this earlier. And exactly 1 year later, Grimsdyke rises from the grave and takes revenge on James. And the following morning, Edward finds his son dead with a note that reads, "Happy Valentine's Day. You were mean and cruel right from the start. Now you really have no." And he opens up this paper and finds somehow still beating heart folded into it. And he just flips out, realizing that.
But also, it wasn't just the Valentines. The guy like told everybody in the town that the Peter Cushing's character was like really sweet with the kids and really nice. And he would fix up toys for them, and everybody loved him. And he was like the gentlest guy in the world. And his wife had already died. And but the young guy was like, he's a trash collector. And then and he like rescued dogs and stuff. And so like he had the dogs taken away from him. The young guy had the dogs taken away from him. Then he spread rumors about him so that all the parents in the town would not let their kids be with him anymore. So he was like doubly lonely. And then he like, I think was he already retired, or did he lose his job or something? And then it just got worse and worse. Like the guy was just constantly coming down on him. And then he got this giant stack of Valentines, and he only read a couple of them, but they were all, I think it was 3. I think he read 3. Bill said 2, but I think there were 3. But yeah, they were all kind of like little poems, like ones that rhymed or whatever. And it just was all horrible. And by that point he had nothing left, so he just like hung himself.
And he pulls a real dick move, because he goes and destroys another neighbor's flowers so that they'll bring dogs, and that's why the dogs get taken away from people.
That's why the dog, right?
So yeah, he definitely deserved what he
got.
What
a prick. I was so glad at the end when he got his heart ripped out.
Yeah,
like, you fucking asshole.
Oh man, I that was my favorite part of this. I hate to just cut back in, because remember I told you guys I'm on the Titanic over here. I had to row my boat for a second there.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite part of this whole entire movie. I was waiting for it to happen. Excuse me. I was waiting for it to happen. It's not a good fucking horror movie if you don't see somebody get their fucking heart ripped out.
Yeah.
And he deserved it. Like, what?
And they did such a good job of making us hate him.
I mean, I really hated him, and I have such authority problem as it is being a musician. So like, I wanted to like beat his ass, because he just would not let up. Did you guys have like a dad like that? Have you guys, or an uncle, the guy who just always did this to you? Like, I was so happy that this happened.
Yeah.
I was fulfilled.
They were such wealthy snobs too. They had no
such an asshole.
And even when they finally realized that something's wrong and they go into his house to check on him, the father's like, "Oh, I thought it would have been filthy in here." It's like,
the thing is too that they also, at least in the beginning, the father wasn't really bothered by the old guy, so he was like, don't worry about it, just ignore him, he's not hurting anybody. And the son was like, we can't tolerate him. And then eventually the father participated in the terrible behavior with the son. But that made me hate the son even more, because it's like the father is equally rich, but he has like enough of a sense to be like, well, there's no reason, like, live and let live. Let's let the guy.
Did we know that was his father? I always thought they were a couple.
Could be his lover.
Oh, well, I thought it was.
Never thought about the whole couple thing. Honestly, I always thought that was like his son, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the age difference wasn't big enough for it to be his father. I don't know, or maybe it was.
No,
Daddy,
it was the father. It says father in the cast listing. So.
Right.
Oh, okay, all right, cool. Because I was like, damn, was I missing something?
Real quick aside here, Frank Polvino commented, "When you can predict the end of a flick, it's not always bragging. I think it's just a comment about the writing or the storytelling." And I agree with that, because like,
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, in some cases, true.
That's a very astute observation, Frank. Thank you.
Yes, because with M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, when I've said this before,
I love that fucking movie. I love The Village, man.
But watching that movie, right? I saw it at the drive-in, and I'm thinking to myself about halfway through, I'm like, all right, this is M. Night Shyamalan. He's gonna want to out-twist himself. What would the twist be? And I figured it out, and I was like, oh, I just hope it's not that. I hope it's not that. And it turned out to be that's exactly what it was. So that's
But
why
I think
didn't like the movie.
I think being able to figure things out is a result of two things. One, you've seen a lot of other movies in that genre before, so you're getting used to like what some of the patterns might be, and it's inevitable. Like your brain just kind of sees something similar and goes, "Oh, I wonder if it's going to be this." But also, we know now when we're watching a movie that it's a 2-hour movie and that the ending is coming, and whether it's like a big twist or not, um a lot of people start trying to figure out what the ending is going to be while they're watching it, which is, again, in some cases it's just natural, especially these days where we just consume so much media.
Right.
But the part of the reason why that irritates me a little bit is because, and I do it too sometimes, but like for the most part I really try to, I don't know, stay in the moment when I'm watching something and not try to figure out what's coming, you know. But I mean, I do it sometimes too, and it's just like, oh, that script, like what this guy just said. Yeah, the script was terrible. It was so obvious that that's where they were going with it, you know. So yeah, in some cases it's just shitty writing, but in other cases I think it's that we've been sort of conditioned to anticipate stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Sure, totally. Yeah.
Like some things, like for this movie, the one with the story, or maybe it was the last one, the story about Lucy, and I remember thinking this time around watching, because I hadn't seen these movies in quite a while, so I didn't remember a lot of them. But I was thinking, oh, she's just in her mind, and then I was like, well, wait a minute now, am I predicting that, or do I remember that? So I just kept that judgment aside, and I just watched the movie without trying to think about it, because I didn't want to ruin it for
But
myself.
like even that, I did the same thing because when Lucy turned up, I was like, wait a minute, Lucy didn't appear until there was nobody else around, you know. So like my brain was already remembering that pattern from other things and going, oh, maybe she's not real, you know. So
Right.
some of it's inevitable, you know.
All right, so the next story in Tales from the Crypt was Wish You Were Here, which was taken from The Haunt of Fear number 22, November of 1953. And this, we had talked about this earlier. It's an adaptation of the story The Monkey's Paw. And in a nutshell, help, I'm trapped in a nutshell. Yes, I know. An ineffective, ruthless businessman and his wife find themselves in possession of a relic that offers wishes and a deep-seated desire not to relive that old chestnut, the monkey's paw, which grants 3 wishes to the owner. Enid decides to wish for a fortune. Surprisingly, the wish comes true, but Ralph is killed, seemingly in a car crash, on the way to his lawyer's office to collect the money. Things get out of control as she keeps wishing him back from the dead, only to trap him in eternal agony and thus making her regret those last 2 wishes. So we did kind of pretty much go over this. We mentioned that Roy Dotrice is in this. He plays father. He played father on Beauty and the Beast. Do we have anything else that you guys want to add to this particular story? Because we pretty much sort of just dissected.
I like the fact that the that they were referencing the monkey's paw story. Like the husband there already knew about it, and then, you know, even if you as a viewer weren't familiar with it, then, you know, he kind of summarizes it, and then later on the friend, the guy's friend, or the couple's friend, comes over after the husband has died, and he gives a little bit more detail. And so it's like, oh, okay, even like I've heard of the monkey's paw before, but even if you hadn't, and the weird thing is that they pretty much followed the same pattern. There was no twist. They didn't really deviate from the horrible shit like they were saying, like the monkey's paw, you make wishes, but then this horrible shit happens to you, so you shouldn't do it. And then the story followed that exact pattern. But so in that sense, you might say it was predictable, but I still thought it was awesome. Like you knew that they were going to get punished for making the wishes, but it was enjoyable to watch it happen, you know?
Yeah. Did it make any of you guys think of that Monkeys episode where they Mickey Dolenz purchases a monkey's paw, and of course they start making wishes and it all goes haywire, but the guy they bought it from was this like down on his luck magician, and he ends up becoming a millionaire while they're all having trouble?
No, I don't remember that one.
No, I've never seen that.
I think even Mickey like loses his voice and they've got to find a new lead singer or something.
The Monkeys was on before something else I watched, like Gilligan's Island or something. So I would always see like the last 10 minutes of the Monkeys.
Oh man, those are the days. We'll do a whole nother show on that at some point, maybe on Then Is Now. All right, so the next story, Blind Alleys, was taken from Tales from the Crypt issue number 46 from February of 1955. And the basic plot line of it was, when penny pinching military man Rogers takes over a house for the blind, he ends up killing one of his charges and riling up Carter and the others, who turn the tables on him and set a house of traps that involves a narrow corridor lined with razor blades and his dog, whom they've starved.
Yes.
I thought it was brutal what the way he treated them. It was just, I would find it actually hard to watch. Not that it was a bad thing, a bad story. I think that was a good thing. It made me uncomfortable watching how he treated these poor blind guys.
Yeah. This is another example of like what Dante said earlier, like comeuppance. Like he was such a fucking. So while I knew, because we were doing anthology movies, that I was going to forget half of the stuff. So this time when I was watching, I took a bunch of notes on my phone and like to summarize the bits so I wouldn't forget them when we were talking about them. So I wrote, asshole ex-army guy with a German Shepherd takes over a home for the blind, treats the residents like crap. They trap him and the dog in the basement and starve them. Guy runs from his hungry dog into a narrow hallway lined with razor blades. There's like just enough to get me to remember, the episode instead of being like, but yeah, that I loved the fact that they constructed an awfully elaborate thing in 2 days, but still
for blind people.
Yeah, blind people. But I still thought I thought their punishment of him was going to be a lot simpler, but I liked what they ended up doing with it.
I enjoyed his punishment. I enjoy anything that makes me really either feel for the character or hate the character. And this guy, I really fucking hated. Like, I really hated him. Like, how can you treat people with disabilities like shit? It's not their fault that they're moving so slow, or that they're not comprehending. So he was an asshole. So I enjoyed his punishment totally. Could it have been not as predictable? Possibly, but I enjoyed the punishment.
Yeah. Reminded me of like a Saw type punishment almost.
Yeah, totally. And that was refreshing. There was not a supernatural ending to it. It was just good old-fashioned fucking comeuppance.
Yeah.
The first time when the guy was initially going down that little narrow hallway thing, the lights came on so he could see all the razor blades, and I was like, why did they just let him go through it in darkness? It would hurt him a lot more. But then they did, right? Because once he got to the end and he realized the dog was coming after him, he went to run through the hallway again, and that's when it went dark. And I was like, oh, that's nasty. He knows they're there, but now he can't see them. So yeah.
And I thought there was one cool scene where the blind guy's explaining to him, because he's like, well, it's fucking freezing in here, and he's like, well, we got to save money. And he's like, yeah, but you don't understand. If you're blind, your other senses are heightened. We feel the cold a lot worse than people who aren't blind, and he just didn't give a shit,
And I like the fact that he gave a concrete example too. He said, you could sell that painting on your wall, and you'd have a chunk of money, and you could raise the heat level until the winter's over. Like, but the guy's office had all these like ornate decorations that he didn't need,
Yeah. So then we get back to the final wraparound segment, and after completing the final tale, the Crypt Keeper reveals that he wasn't warning them of what would happen, but telling them what had already happened, and that they've all died without repentance. And there's one. I didn't quite get this in in my research, but it's basically said one of the clues was that to the twist was that Joan Collins's character. She thought she lost her brooch, but she finds it.
Yeah, I caught that immediately.
Yeah,
I was like, oh shit.
So what did it end up meaning? I don't.
That it really happened, because she got that before the events described in her dream.
Oh, okay.
I believe. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
I like also at the beginning, after having finished the movie, at the beginning, the Crypt Keeper like asked each one of them, like, how did you get here? Like, what's the last thing that you remember doing? And they're like, oh, da 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 da. And he's like, and what about after that? What were your plans? After that, what were you planning on doing? And then they're like, I don't know, I can't really remember. And then he's like, well, that
That
you
ain't a
can't.
good sign.
Yeah, you couldn't make any plans because you're in hell. You're going straight to hell.
So the crypt keeper basically says, and who's next? And he looks at the camera and breaks the fourth wall and says, perhaps you. Which
Perhaps
I thought
you.
that kind of creeped me out.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
liked that.
yeah.
Now there's an extra. Am I ruining this? Hold on, maybe it's. Hold on, let me just double check because I don't want to ruin it. Okay, I have a photo, but it's for the end of Vault of Horror. So next up, we're going to discuss. Hold on, am I doing the right one? No, it's Tales from the Crypt. Sorry, apologize, people. We're going to discuss Vault of Horror, which was from. This was sort of a follow-up film to this one from 1973. It was also known as Further Tales from the Crypt and Tales from the Crypt 2. Once again, directed by Roy Ward Baker and written by Milton Subotsky, who wrote Tales from the Crypt, Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. And one thing that was cool, I found out he also wrote Doctor Who and the Daleks, as well as the Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD, both of which Peter Cushing plays the Doctor.
Nice.
So I actually have to take a quick 5-minute break. Can you guys continue the conversation? I'm sure, Bill, you have some background on this movie.
Sure. We got you covered, man.
Is Bill still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, cool. All right, I'll be right back.
He's pensively smoking.
He's smoking pensively.
So are we supposed to be talking about Vault of Horror now?
Yeah.
Yeah, or anything you want. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think one thing that we didn't touch on when we were talking about these movies to begin with, there was a lot of controversy about the EC comics in the 50s, and it wasn't only that they dealt with gruesome subject matter, but they were the first ones to really depict the gore of body parts lying there in severed pieces and people getting their guts ripped out. And they actually showed that kind of stuff in the comic books, and that was a catalyst for a lot of people. They were triggered by that imagery, especially because children were consuming these comic books, and they were like, oh, well, if we show this to our kids, they're going to start doing this. They're going to think that this is okay, which is really a very cynical way of looking at
I mean,
children.
how impressionable. I mean, people are impressionable, but not to that degree.
Yeah, I mean, like if you have a child that would see that and imitate that behavior, then you're the one that's at fault because you raised a fucking weird child. But you can't tell people that kind of things. When it's always the older generation that's pissed off by these kind of things. And this was one of the most recent things, at least to my generation. It wasn't mine because I was born in 70, but it was right before me. Like my parents were part of that whole generation, especially my dad. My mom wasn't interested in this kind of stuff, but my dad was, and he read horror comics, and that's probably the first place that I ever saw a horror comic, was just because of my dad. And this was shocking to people, and they saw it as the downfall of Western society. Point blank. It was that old conversation about how first it's like horror comics, then rock and roll music, and there was always something that was going to destroy Western civilization. And here was one of the first culprits to that. The moral majority, the evangelists, because it wasn't even televangelists yet in the 50s.
Right.
It was always like the moralizers came to the forefront. They're like, well, you can't have a comic book where you show someone get hacked up with an axe.
This is clearly the instruments of Satan.
Right.
Trying to infiltrate your mind.
That's what this was taboo, a lot of this material. And by the time these movies were made, it was only maybe maybe like less than 15 years outside of the EC Comics controversy, because it was 72. The math that I'm doing in my head is kind of undoing my brain right now, but it's around 15 years. Not that long. It's
Yeah.
long, but it's not, in
Right.
the ancient mists of time long. When I think about 15 years ago, like that seems like yesterday to me.
Yeah.
So it
I
was really
agree.
something unusual that this kind of material was even out there it was still in popular culture. And here it was coming back to us again in the form of motion pictures, which coincidentally, people were just starting to, it was like Peckinpah, these directors were pushing the envelope with violence that, Chinatown was
Hmm.
pretty gruesome and a couple gruesome things, and Bonnie and Clyde. So this was a time in cinema in general well, I'm not even talking Herschel Gordon Lewis kind of gore, which was done, like mannequin body parts and everything. Like this was visceral horror being brought in service of a story. And that was controversial at the time. It still is. To this day, it's still there's always some button you can push, some limit that you've reached where if you
Oh,
transgress
sure.
beyond that, it's too far.
Right. That's what used to always piss me off about Halloween is that uh, people would say, like, if you watched Friday the 13th, or you watched, you dressed up as Jason on Halloween, or you were interested in horror or whatever, you were more likely to actually become a psycho, killer. It would give you
Yeah.
ideas, especially if you're a teenager, give you ideas and you'd go out and do it. But just like what you said before, Bill is like, that's what I always said is if watching something like that makes you think, ooh, I'm going to go do that, that there's already something wrong with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you can't discern between a movie and reality, and like, that's just, you're already fucked in the head, and you need help.
And Stephen King said it perfectly once. He said, "Crazy's crazy. They'll find something else to copy."
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
These
look.
Right.
concepts of morality, like they don't come from anything other than our human experience. I mean, I know we assign a lot of meaning to morality, like a religious morality and whatever, but you know, it's not actually true because even if you don't have any kind of religious leanings or social conservatism, which is what that was the voice that was rising against these horror comics in the 50s. Even if you don't have that, the reason that you think it's wrong to murder somebody is because you don't want to be murdered. We don't we have a sense of, we feel a sense of kinship with other people in our species, human beings. And when we see people who are also human beings being harmed, it arouses something in us, and that's what keeps you. You don't want that to happen to another human being because the implication is it could happen to you. Like if that's what kind of world this is where we can murder each other, then you're going to get murdered too.
Yeah.
That's what these comics are really saying here. I think is that this is behavior that if you do this, because everybody gets their comeuppance at the end of the Tales from the Crypt stuff. They're like, if you do this kind of shit, this kind of shit's gonna happen to you. You're making a world where it's okay to do this, and that's
Right.
wrong.
Right.
That's
And the
absolutely
bad
wrong.
people always get punished. Like, it's not like glorifying it and saying this is a great idea, like,
Mm-hmm.
go out and do this, look how wonderful this person is and how successful they became by murdering everybody. It's like, they don't, it's not, even with something like American Psycho, where it's, for the first half of the film, it seems like, wow, he's got a pretty great life and he just goes around murdering people whenever he feels like it, but then at the end, shit starts to unravel.
Yeah.
So
I mean, one last thing I want to say about that is, look at Shakespeare's play Titus Andronicus. That's one of the most violent things ever
Yes.
written.
Yeah.
a tragedy in his day meant everybody dies at the end.
Right.
Almost everybody.
All right. So the wraparound story for Vault of Horror is five strangers board a descending lift one by one in a modern office block in London. They reach the sub-basement, though none of them have pressed for that destination. There they find a large, elaborately furnished room that appears to be a gentleman's club. The lift door has closed. So there are no buttons to bring it back, nor any other exit. I thought this was funny. I'll get back to the scene and give my comment on it. But resigned to waiting for help, the five men settle down with drinks and talk. The conversation turns to dreams, and each man tells of a recurring nightmare. I just thought it was funny when the guy turns around and there's no buttons to get out. None of them panic. They're like, "Oh, somebody's bound to come along. It's like, what? The first thing I would do would be trying to find a way out.
Yeah. They're like, oh, let's just sit down and enjoy ourselves. Might as well just make the best of it or something. I think one of them even says that, make the best of it.
That's part of the experience of this, though. I mean, the situation that they're in, we know probably from the beginning, because we saw the first movie, that these are disembodied spirits or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're confused. That this is an alternate dimension of reality that they have crossed over into, and they're maybe it's like waking up from a dream. They're trying to remember the things that happened to them. So maybe it isn't so strange to them that there are no buttons on the elevator at the end.
Yeah.
But there's no number either, but there's this big red square above them. I like that. That was funny. Yeah. Oh, we can't hear you, Raj.
Yeah,
there you
go.
I was going to say, I suppose it does fall into that sort of dream logic, because I had this bizarre dream this morning before I woke up where, I don't know, it was somebody else's house and I was trying to cook something, and there was a frying pan on the stove that had this, what looked like a jellyfish in it. And I was like, oh, that's my wife's fish or something. And then it like other weird things were happening, but then it like turned into this squid, which eventually turned into this guy. And it did, like, I thought it was weird, but it didn't freak me out or anything. I was just like part of what was going on. So I guess with that dream logic, then yeah, having there be no way to get out of there, it didn't freak them out.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose. Yeah, you accept things as normal, even though you normally would be like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Right. Run screaming.
I always tell Mark, I have a recurring dream. And when we moved here, we moved to this house about 6-7 years ago. And before that, we rented a house. And we lived there I lived there for almost 20 years. And Mark lived there almost as long. And I have dreams. I have a recurring dream constantly that I'm back in the old house. But I'm there, and the new owners aren't there. Like I've broken in or trespassed or something. And it's after we moved out, somebody bought it and they gutted it and renovated it, and they like added a bathroom and they made one of the floors different. And I was like, I want to get in there so bad and look and see what they did. So in this dream, that has become reality for me, and I'm in the house, and there are all these variations, and sometimes like the dream goes on longer and I learn more about the people that bought the house. And like first I learned they were a couple, then I learned that they had 2 teenage children and were always busted in their house walking around, and they're not mad that we're there. And I tell Mark all the time, I'm going to wake up and we're going to be back in the old house. And this dream that I keep having is like, that's the reality. And like right now, that this new house, I'm dreaming all this. These movies, this is what these movies have done to me.
Well, and I guess so, because growing up, and even into my adulthood, I always had dreams in the house I grew up in of finding, weird doorways and rooms and passages to other places that weren't there. And come to find out, my father had those same dreams. It's really bizarre. And then I would have them when my ex-wife and I bought our second house. I would have those dreams too. And it's strange.
About that house or about your childhood?
The second house.
Oh.
Yeah. So
wow.
it's just bizarre.
Frank Polvino had a great comment in the Facebook group about how he said that the horror comics of the 50s were drawn more realistically than any other comics, and that made them all the more shocking, I guess. So yeah, thanks, Frank, for that comment.
Oh, and another fan, Darren Kersey, wrote "Poor Joan Collins."
Poor Joan Collins. She gets strangled by Santa. She gets gassed by a giant ant.
Yeah.
She has a demon baby. All these things have happened to her in horror movies. She can't catch a break.
And then you get somebody like me saying I don't find her attractive at all. My God, that's like
I thought. I mean,
that's the final nail in the.
I mean, be honest with you, I was like, oh, she's hot. She doesn't have a face full of makeup. It's great.
She is hot.
I don't know. Something.
I can say
maybe
that
she has a nice body,
man.
but there's something about her face that I just don't.
She's a butterface. Is that what you're saying?
Doesn't work for me. Yes, she's a butterface. I mean, I don't hate her, but I just don't understand when people go all gaga over certain people.
I
I'm like,
always
what?
have. Just growing up, I always had a crush on her.
Oh God.
All right, so our first story in Vault of Horror is Midnight Mess, which is taken from Tales of the Crypt issue number 35. Harold Rogers kills a private detective that he hired to track his sister Donna down, who lives in a strange town, and then he kills her to claim his family inheritance.
Yes.
After settling down to a post-murder meal at the local restaurant, he discovers the town is home to a nest of vampires, and Donna's not quite as dead as he thought. He becomes the dish of the night when his jugular vein is tapped out as a beverage dispenser, which apparently this last scene was blacked out on the US DVD release.
Oh, really?
Really?
Oh, so now I'm gonna have to go looking for that.
Yeah.
Well, it was the edited version. Like that was what they had to cut in the United States to get a PG rating. Was because I
Oh.
guess that shot was considered too gruesome because like you could see it like moving with his heartbeat. It really was kind of gruesome.
Yeah. And his he was like rolling his eyes and twitching and
Yeah. So they had to they cut it and they just substituted a freeze frame image of the vampires drinking from a tap from his neck. Not the same thing.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. The actors who played Anna and Daniel were Donna Rogers and Harold Rogers, and they were real life siblings. So
I thought she was cute.
I misspoke. The characters are Donna Rogers and Harold Rogers. The actors are Anna Massey and Daniel Massey, because their parents were actors, Adrian Allen and Raymond Massey. So yeah, she was cute. And did you guys see it coming that she was the head vampire?
No, he killed her, and I got the feeling maybe she wasn't completely dead. Because they like introduced her and then like 2 seconds later she was dead. And I was like, wait a minute,
You mean you guessed the ending? You saw the ending coming?
I mean, I honestly, to be honest with you guys, like I was sort of, and I don't know if this is
No,
good,
actually I didn't. Go ahead, Dantes.
but I was sort of confused. I didn't know if this was like a dark slapstick comedy or
Yeah. The teeth on the vampires were like
Completely
these
impractical. Like,
you know,
think they were retractable.
That totally validates my feeling, bro. Because I was like, "What is going on here?"
Yeah,
like she had normal looking vampire fangs, normal looking, but those look like, it just reminded me of a Monty Python sketch that they'd be
right,
the bottom jaw by accident all the time.
I didn't expect her to be a vampire though. I knew they were talking about people who they come when it's dark, and then she said something about bodies that had all the blood drained out of them. But then, so I felt like they introduced her. She came into the story. They introduced her, and then kind of established a little bit that she was seemed like she was kind of a good person, and the father left everything to her, and then the guy stabs her, which I was surprised by. And then I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be like the Peter Cushing story in the other movie where he's a genuinely nice person, but he comes back from the dead because of the guy killed her, who was like a complete asshole. But I didn't think she was going to be one of the vampires at all. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I thought, but I thought she was going to come back somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I thought she was going to come back, but yeah. And I thought it was interesting too, because he goes to the restaurant. The guy's like, "Oh, sorry, we're closed." He's like, "Before dinner, it's not even 7." And he's like, "Oh yeah, we have to close because it gets dark and blah blah blah." And then he goes out later on after killing the sister, and he's like, "Oh, it looks like it's open. People are going in." So he goes in. I thought that was a cool little mystery, because I'm like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Yeah. And I thought he was going to raise more of a stink about that, but he was just like, because he looked around, and he's like, it's clearly open. And then he just went and sat down. But I thought he was going to grab like the guy and be like, why'd you tell me this was closed?
Yeah.
And then everything they give him, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say everything they gave him to eat had like blood in it, and it tasted weird to him.
Yeah. It did kind of give me Monster Club vibes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
that was a good comparison. Totally.
Yeah.
All right, so the next story in this was The Neat Job, which came from a comic book called Shock Suspend Stories #1. The obsessively neat Arthur Critchett marries Eleanor, a young trophy wife who is not quite the housekeeper he'd hoped for. His constant nagging about the mess she makes eventually drives her mad. Upon his shouting at her, "Can't you do anything neatly? Can't you? Can't you do anything neatly?" She
Can't you?
finally snaps and kills him with a hammer, then cuts up the corpse and puts all the different organs neatly into neatly labeled jars. I'm going to say right off the bat, I really love this one. Part of which is, and it's going to sound bad, but it's not really bad. But the first half, anyways, I totally identified with him. Like I was like, oh my God, am I that bad? I mean, I have to have things in a certain place, a place for everything and everything in its place. And I could see myself being upset. You know, I've done that where things are moved and I'm like, why is that moved? It needs to be here. And I mean, obviously I'm in a disclaimer. I'm not as bad as he was. He was over the top and he was totally mean and rude to her. He just wanted
Yeah.
We have words for that now. That's called obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yes.
That's why I even wrote that in my little notes. OCD. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of why I liked it, because I was like at the beginning, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I had forgotten this, and I was like, yeah. Why can't she, mark down on the thing how many cans are in the cabinet and stuff? That's a great idea. I should implement that.
Yeah, but they gradually showed more and more how like obsessive he was, and then he was such an asshole to her about it. Like he wasn't just trying to explain it to her and saying, I need you to do it this way. He was just like insulting her, and I was glad she finally bashed him in the head with the hammer.
And it's just funny to see Terry Thomas, who's normally in comedic roles, being a douchebag in this. Like he's been in so many funny movies. Like he was in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yes.
He was like, Americans have this fascination with bosoms.
Bosoms.
Oh my God. He's so famous for having the gap in his teeth and stuff.
There was a similar situation with the hammer. There's been a TV series version of Fargo over the past several years, and I don't know if it was a second season or whatever. There was like a reversed situation where the guy's wife was constantly berating him and yelling at him and putting him down and scolding him, and it was almost the same type of thing, but not about being neat and tidy, just general, like her calling him useless and everything. And there was a point where he had gone down to fix something in the basement, and she came down to yell at him and tell him he was doing it wrong, and it took him too long to start in the first place, and then he just like whacks her in the head with the hammer. It was pretty similar. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh my God. So what did we think of this one overall?
I liked it. I guess if you look at it really objectively, you might say, well, did he really deserve to die? I mean, he deserved some kind of punishment, but did he deserve to die? But yeah, he was just such an asshole to her on a daily basis. I can totally see how she would snap.
Right.
You know what I will say, sorry, Michael, what I really missed from this one, what sort of held this story and the previous one together nicely anyway, what would have, there was no guide. Like I totally needed a guide, and I would have liked the story, I feel like, a lot more had I had maybe a nice little segue into it. Like I guess Tales from the Crypt sort of spoiled me with that. So
You mean a guide, like a narrator who set
like
up
the Crypt Keeper
scenario?
Yeah, because I just feel like the punchlines weren't as well rounded. Like you knew the comeuppance was coming, but there was nothing that tied the fucking comeuppance together for everybody.
Right. Because I guess in the comics, there's a character called the Vault Keeper, who's like the Crypt Keeper. And they didn't do that for whatever reason in this movie.
I knew it. Like something was totally missing, man. Like, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I guess none of the stories are actually from any of the Vault of Horror comics. I said this already. All but one appeared in Tales from the Crypt, and the exception was the one from Shock Suspense Stories, which
okay.
Which was
I have to actually look these comics up too. I didn't know there was Vault of Horror, so this is totally like brand new to me here.
Yeah. Bill, did you have anything to say about the neat job?
No, not really. It was probably the least of the stories, I might say. And again, I didn't understand how. I was a little confused about how he ended up being the victim in this murder, whereas most of these folks that ended up here, they're the perpetrators of some kind of murder. But
Yeah,
in his case, like, I guess it's okay for her to murder him. Like, why isn't she there too?
Right.
They could have had a
that's
like
what I
their
was saying
second
about the monkey's
honeymoon.
paw one. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Why did
Yeah,
he
I
get?
mean, you could argue maybe it was because he was so abusive to her, but he wasn't like
Yeah.
physically abusive. He just treated her like a handmaid, you know?
Yeah. And then it also seemed like I could see her killing him out of, in a moment of passion. But then at the end, it seemed like she had completely snapped. Like she had all the body parts all organized and she was just cackling like a complete psycho.
Yeah, she
And I
didn't
was
have
like,
any regret over it.
like,
She loved it.
yeah. Like, how did she get from like lashing out one time to, being out of her mind?
And it wasn't like she was trying to swindle him. She basically just married him because she told her friend, she's like, I don't have any skills and he's got money, so he's willing to marry me. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't like she was gonna kill him and steal all his money. At least we didn't see that.
Mm.
I mean, who knows? There probably you could redo this and have there be a deeper story where it's right in the background where you could tell she might snap at any point, but then you maybe don't think
Mm.
because she doesn't until the last minute.
Yeah. Like some kind of an indication, the foreshadowing that
Yeah,
that she was on the edge or something.
but that is a
Or
good
she
point.
could have had a much more clever way of punishing him, like
Right.
instead of just killing him outright, like, I don't know, lock him up in a little cage and keep him on like a really strict, impose a bunch of strict rules on him and whatever.
Put him
Throw
on
coins.
a keto diet.
Or just feed him like once every 3 days or something. It'd be like, nope, that's what it says in the schedule. Sorry.
Or she could throw coins in and say he has got to stack them all by the same coins, but in the stacks. And then she comes over, knocks them over, and he's got to do it all over.
Yes. Oh, like using his OCD against him.
Yeah,
Wow.
because that would drive me crazy.
Oh my God.
All right. So the next story is called This Trick Will Kill You. It's from Tales from the Crypt, issue number 33. Sebastian is a magician on a working holiday in India where he and his wife Inez are searching for new tricks. Nothing impresses them until he sees a girl charming a rope out of a basket with a flute. Unable to work out how the trick's done, he persuades her to come to his hotel room where he and his wife murder her and steal the enchanted rope. Sebastian plays the flute and the rope rises. Realizing that they've discovered a piece of genuine magic, the couple begins to plan it to work it into their act. Inez experiments with climbing the rope only to disappear with a scream. An ominous patch of blood appears on the ceiling and the rope coils around Sebastian's neck and hangs him. That's a very abbreviated way of saying what happens to him in the rope.
Yeah.
Their victim reappears alive in the bazaar. So I don't really know the actors. Kurt Jerkins plays Sebastian, but a lady named Dawn Adams plays Inez, and that's Dawn Dawn, not to be confused with Dawn Don Adams from Get Smart.
Oh,
When you say it out loud, oh yeah, Dawn Adams played the wife.
right.
What?
Or Don Wells from Gilligan's Island.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I thought this one was interesting. I didn't really know what was going to happen. And when she like looked up and screamed, I'm like, I wanted to know what happened. What did she see? Where did she go?
And the blood stain that like got bigger and bigger on the ceiling. I loved that. That was so cool.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we didn't get to see what happened to her, but we see enough blood that we're like, oh, she's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Something weird and magical happened. But then like they show the other lady alive at the end doing the magic trick again, and the guy, what do you call it? Ringmastering the whole event or whatever, emceeing it. He looks up out the window and you could see the dead guy hanging in the window. It's like, well, couldn't the people sitting there see him also? It's like, all right, fine.
I like the way the rope came after the guy. I mean, it was difficult for them to film. You could sort of tell that they were like struggling with the special effects, but it was still cool. I liked the idea that the rope became sentient and like went after him and lashed out at him like a big snake, and then finally got him around the neck and choked his ass.
Yeah.
Choked him out.
There
Like a
were
wrestler.
moments where you could tell he had to like turn himself so it would wrap around him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was Bela Lugosi and the octopus.
I was just gonna say that. You just
And they're like,
flail around and move the arms. It'll look like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna grab you.
Yeah.
And they're
Good
playing that
acting.
like that whip sound effect, that whoosh, you know,
Yeah.
when the rope is just going, oh, it's like, all right, I get it.
It
I
would
get
have
where
been
you,
cool if the thing just whipped him to death,
yeah, right. Repeatedly, just
That probably would have been easier to shoot.
death by a million paper cuts.
Excuse me. All right, so we've got two more stories in
Almost
horror here.
sneeze.
Say what?
I almost sneezed and then it just disappeared. I went, and then nothing happened.
Oh, that's because I reached down and put my finger under your nose, so
That's what it was.
it stopped you from sneezing.
Thank you.
Real
right.
magic it happens after all.
I
There you
know.
go.
It really does. It's a Christmas miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle. I do that all the time when like something mundane happens that's supposed to happen, and I go, "It's a Christmas miracle."
It's a Christmas miracle.
All right, so our third story is called Bargain in Death from Tales from the Crypt issue number 28. Maitland is buried alive as part of an insurance scam concocted with his friend Alex. Alex double crosses Maitland, leaving him to suffocate. Two trainee doctors, oddly enough named Tom and Jerry, bribe a gravedigger to dig up a corpse to help with their studies. When Maitland's coffin is open, he jumps up, gasping for air, scaring the shit out of Tom and Jerry, who run into the middle of the road in front of Alex's car, which crashes into a tree and explodes. The gravedigger kills Maitland, and when trying to close the sale of the corpse, apologizes to Tom and Jerry for the damage to the head. I thought this was an entertaining one. I I'd forgotten this movie mostly. I didn't know what to expect. But what was I going to say? There was when he's telling his friend, "Oh yeah, come and dig me out." The next day, I was thinking, no.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. You idiot! What's his motivation for digging you up? Like,
Right.
dig
To
me
share
up,
the
and
money with you.
I'll hide at your house, and then you go get the money, and then it's like, wait a minute, like that makes no sense. Like, why don't you just hide at his house the whole time? Like, why are you letting him bury you? He's never going to dig you up, you dumbass.
Right.
It's a stupid plan to begin with.
That reminded me of and I know you guys probably don't care, but there was a cool years ago, back in the 90s, there was a cool story on General Hospital where there's a serial killer who was on the show until recently. And one of the ways he escaped from the asylum he was in was he had this chick that was in love with him, and he did the same thing, got lowered his thing, they thought he was dead, had him buried outside in a coffin, but he had set it up ahead of time with her that he'd have a little oxygen tank inside with him. And then of course she finally comes and digs him up, and she didn't double cross him because she was of course in love with him, but then he strangled her, threw her into the coffin, and reburied it. I thought that was kind of cool.
That's not very nice.
Those are the thanks you get.
Yeah.
In fact, it's rude. I'll come right out and say it.
It's straight up
It's
rude.
downright rude.
Inconsiderate person
who should have double crossed you. So we got a chat here, and I'm just trying to find it. Where did that go? It's from Dantes. What?
Oh, what's that? Yikes.
That's me making weird noises.
Oh, here we go. So Dantes apologizes. He had to leave early. His uncle's there to help him with his water issue. So
Okay.
he did tell me ahead of time that could have happened. So, well, thank you for joining us, Dantes. We hope your fans are still listening. We're almost done here. We're on to the last segment, I believe, which is Drawn and Quartered. I think that's a great pun title from Tales from the Crypt issue number 26.
Yes.
Moore is an impoverished painter living in Haiti. When he learns that his paintings have been sold for high prices by art dealers Dilettante and Gaskill, after being praised by critic Fenton Breedley, all of whom told him that they were worthless, he goes to a voodoo priest, and his painting hand is given voodoo power. Whatever he paints or draws can be harmed by damaging its image. Rather awkwardly, these events coincide with completing a self-portrait, which he keeps under lock and key to prevent the magic from turning on him. Returning to London, Moore paints portraits of the three men who cheated him and mutilates the paintings to exact his revenge. After getting revenge on the final victim by painting a red dot on the forehead of which leads to the gun-wielding man to shoot himself in the forehead. He must run back home because leaving his painting in an airless strongbox nearly suffocates him. He puts his own portrait out in the open before realizing he left his watch at the scene of the death. While running back, a workman accidentally drops a can of, while he's running back, a workman who's outside the building, and of course there's windows over where his painting is. Workman accidentally drops a can of paint thinner on the picture through a skylight, and more as a result dies from the voodoo. So yeah, basically a truck hits him and crushes his head.
Crushes his head, yeah. And then they show the painting with the face like just blah, yeah.
So as we mentioned earlier, there's a Tom Baker, who is the legendary fourth Doctor Who, probably the most famous up until the more recent ones, where he's the one with the scarf, the long scarf. Everybody remembers that. And the curly hair. He was in this. I remember, yeah, when I showed this to you, Mike, I think I like videotaped it off of cable, and I'm like, you got to see this. Doctor Who's in it, or blah, blah, Tom Baker's in it, you know. And so, and also I wanted to mention Denholm Elliott plays who is lost in his own museum, as they say.
He was what?
And Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. What's his name? Sean Connery tells Harrison Ford, "Yeah, Marcus, you left him to do that. He got lost in his own museum."
Oh yeah.
I don't understand why this is not doing it.
I gotta say though, as much as I loved the fact that Tom Baker was in this, because I just love him, he's just so awesome. But as far as like the logistics of how things worked with the painting and whatnot, the drawings, like I found that a little odd. Like the first one, he draws a picture of the vase, and then he drops the picture, and the vase hits the floor and breaks, right?
Yeah.
Without touching the real vase. Then he draws a picture of he puts a piece of bread on the floor, draws it, and then he erases part of it, and then a mouse comes in and eats the rest of the little piece of the bread off, which I thought, well, that's weird. Why does he need the mouse if he has the magic? Why did the part of the bread should just disappear, you know? But then anyway, so because whatever happens to the art happens to the thing, regardless of what else is going on in the world. And then I had no problem with the way he killed the first two guys, but then the last one, he drew the red dot on the forehead, and to me that one wasn't really the magic either, because if the things only happen if they happen to the painting. So if the guy had shot him, the painting, you know, felt compelled to shoot the painting through the head, and then he ended up with a hole in his head and died that way, that would have seemed more magic. But having it like make him turn the gun and shoot himself, yeah, it's more realistic, but it's not really what the voodoo was. Whatever happens to his art happens in real life. But the painting, other than having a red dot drawn on it at the end, nothing happened to the painting. It was just the guy shot himself.
It was just the suggestion of it caused something in real life to happen. I think that was the implication, was that it didn't necessarily have to be done to the painting. It was just like whatever, he painted him with a red dot on his forehead, so he ended up with a red dot on his forehead in real life. He was shot through the head, which I agree, like it could have been, he could have gotten hit by a paintbrush with red paint on it and had a red dot in its forehead.
Right.
So it didn't have to be a murder. But the voodoo knows what your intention is too.
Yeah. I guess that's that there you go. Yeah.
And
the voodoo knows you're up to no good.
Yeah.
I was remembering it sort of like Michael Caine's The Hand, where I thought he got his hand cut off and it came back and sought revenge on him. I completely forgot the whole plot of this thing. So
I did too, except for him being an artist.
Yeah.
Like I forgot the whole thing. Yeah. Had forgotten the whole thing.
Oh my God. So I apologize. I meant to do these earlier, but I had to take a break. So I kind of forgot. But these are the movie ads that we've got here. And can you guys see them?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So yeah, this one's from you, Bill. This is awesome. I love this one.
This is a great one.
Kenwood. Where is this?
Oh, I knew you were gonna. It's Albany, I guess. Albany, New York, or Connecticut. This could be from Hartford, Connecticut, I think.
Okay. The Albany Drive-In Theater on Highway 150. Nice. Kenwood. Nice. And then,
or maybe this is Louisville. God, now I'm confused. I just pulled these together in a hurry.
I just want to see if there's any clues in here.
I can look it up, I guess.
It's no big deal. I was just curious. But I do like this. I like the way they've put the images together. No one under 18 admitted without parent or guardian.
Well, I gotta say, the wrapped up head doesn't. You can't even discern what that is.
Yeah, that's true. Although it is a scan, so and I bet you in the newspaper it was.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Um,
Vault of Horror.
And you got Black Caesar. That's a good movie. Hail Caesar, the Godfather of Harlem, the cat with the 45 caliber claws.
Yeah, this was Louisville, by the way. This
Okay.
was Louisville, Kentucky.
Nice. And then Deadlier Than Dracula, Blackula. I love that movie.
One of my favorite movies ever, Blackula.
That's such a fun movie.
I don't think I've ever
Black
seen
Angels. I've heard of it, but I don't think I've seen that.
It was like a black biker movie.
Yeah. We should do what?
You're always referring to like blaxploitation movies, but we should do like an episode about those or something, because I'm not really familiar with those.
There's only a handful of blaxploitation horror films per se, but the blaxploitation films in general are good.
The whole genre is great, you know.
Yeah. So many good ones. All right, let's keep going here because we got a bunch. This is also another cool one. Death Lives Again, Further Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, everything that makes life worth living. So do you know anything about I know that this was also, I said at the beginning, this was also called Further Tales from the Crypt or Tales from the Crypt 2. Do you know anything, Bill, or have you already talked about it when I stepped out?
No, that's one of the following ads. I know I gave you a bunch of ads where it was called Tales from the Crypt 2. I think it was just an attempt by the American distributor to make it seem more what you see is what you get. Because I thought maybe they thought that the title Vault of Horror wasn't really indicative of what the moviegoer was going to see when they went to and Tales from the Crypt, the original film, that was a pretty big hit. So
okay,
I don't know why they didn't just do that in the first place. But it's a British film, and I think the British probably appreciate the intelligence of their audience a little bit more than Americans, who tend to be more cynical and just package things as Tales from the Crypt 2. Why don't you flip over and try and find one of those ads?
Sure.
It was later in the 70s that it came out as Tales from the Crypt 2. Here it is.
Yeah. Playing with bed bunnies.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
At the family drive-in, all the loving couples. It was the late 70s. And look, they gave it an R rating here, which I don't think that's true. But
Velvet Vampire.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Velvet Vampire is amazing.
Yeah, that's a good
Stephanie Rothman, director of The Young Nurses. So many other fantastic films. Tales from the Crypt 2, though, was a late 70s or 1980 release. It played a lot. This may have been 1980, actually. I know one of the other ads is from 1980.
Yeah. Where adventure ends and hell begins. Sacrifice ignites, drum explodes, sacrifice and drum.
Sacrifice is an Umberto Lenzi cannibal film. It was right before this was I always get this messed up because they had so many titles. This was The Man from Deep River. Under another title.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to think which one it would be. And then drum. Interesting. All right, and then we've got here we go. Another one. Tomb It May Concern for Cold Chills.
Yeah, this was definitely 1980.
I love how they call it the world's most honored horror film.
Honored in what way? I mean,
no idea.
It's won the most awards.
I honor you, Tales from the Crypt 2. I mean, I think that was a tagline used to describe Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, interesting.
And they just pulled it out of thin air for Tales from the Crypt 2.
Oh, I just noticed that Tomb It May Concern. I heard Roger say it, but I didn't read it. I just noticed.
There's two of tonight's movies on the same bill under their alternate titles.
That's funny.
Skyway.
That's like a parallel Earth where that's where those were called in the parallel Earth.
Yeah, called 1980 America.
Yeah.
The parallel Earth of 1980 America.
Pretty much.
Oh my God. And then this one I put together was all from the same page.
Pete and Tilly.
because because it was easier just to do it.
Soylent Green.
Oh my god! Wait, is that a mummy there? Oh, I thought this was at a glance. I thought that was a mummy. It's
I
Easter
did
egg.
too.
It's a
Jack Lemmon,
scream.
Save the Tiger, Soylent Green, Watt Stacks,
Horse feathers and monkey business.
Pete and Tilly. Oh, the Marx Brothers. Oh yeah. Oh wow. Okay, yeah.
The other.
The Young
The
Seducers.
other is amazing.
Swinging stewardesses. Oh,
Igor,
my
do you
Lord.
like the other?
Yes. Yeah. I always find that movie disturbing.
It is.
James Garner and Support Your Local Sheriff. I remember that playing on Channel 56. You'll like my mother.
That's good too. Patty Duke.
Yeah. Oh, and then it had The World's Greatest Athlete, which is Kurt Russell, I think.
I like that movie. Dubby dubby da.
Not Kurt Russell. It's Jan Michael Vincent.
Yes, not Kurt Russell.
Which, by the way, in the new Monarch TV show, which takes place in the American Godzilla universe, Kurt Russell's in it, and his Wyatt Russell plays him younger in flashbacks.
No
And
way.
It's funny because when it first came on, I'm like, wow, they really cast this guy to look just like Kurt Russell, and then come to find out it's his son.
I really want to watch that.
He played the U.S. agent in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show.
Oh.
But there we
What?
go. What?
What channel? How do you watch the Monarch show?
I no wasn't going to watch it because you have to watch it on Apple.
Uh-huh.
And when you pay for Apple, you also have to pay for TV shows. But I got 3 free months, and I was like, all right, I want to see it. And I got it through the Roku, and I figured out that you don't have to pay for that particular show. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. 3 months free. I put a reminder on my phone, cancel Apple 3 months.
That's good. That's a good idea. Okay. Because I want to watch that too.
Yeah. It just popped up on the Roku while we were watching TV. And I'm like, all right, I'm doing it. I wanted to see. It's very good. It's very well done. But yeah, this is just another one of just what it's playing against. Charlotte's Web and Star Spangled Girl. I never heard of that one.
I like how
That's
they
like
spelled
a-
athlete.
Star Spangled Girl is like a softcore film.
Oh, it is.
Or no, no, forget it. If that's All American Girl.
And I was gonna say it can't be because it's listed
Star
as
Spangled.
rated. So.
Yeah, Charlotte's. That's the X-rated Charlotte's Web Igor.
Okay. Silent Running is a great movie too. I really love that with Bruce Dern. It's basically he's this guy on this spaceship way in the future, and it's he's got these little R2D2 type robots, and this is long before R2D2 was a thing.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool. It's like a botany ship or something, and just the stuff that happens to him out in space. It's sort of like a an intelligent science fiction movie. There's no monsters, no aliens, it's just a well done movie. And then here's another one. This is from the Jersey Journal and Jersey Observer.
They must
73.
be stopped.
The Mind Snatchers. Now, all right, that's one I didn't know. What is that one?
The Mind Snatchers. God, it's one of those movies that there were a couple that were titled similarly, like The Mind Stealers, The Mind Snatchers.
Oh, the Body Snatchers.
The truth is, I don't know.
I'm looking it up real quick here. Mind Snatchers, 1972, with Christopher Walken and Joss Ackland. Ronnie Cox is in it. It's a German. Hold on. A German scientist works on a way of quelling overly aggressive soldiers by developing implants that directly stimulate the pleasure centers of the brain. Interesting. Directed by Bernard Gerard.
It sounds kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be bad.
Probably a reason why.
So bad it's good, but
Yeah. It's about mind control, a government conspiracy, and an experiment gone wrong. It's a bit talky, but certainly well acted and thought provoking. And it does have Christopher Walken, so that could be worth it. Who's got to be real young in 1973. All right, and then this is a cool one too from the Los Angeles Times. Below the crypt lies the vault of horror, death's waiting room. Everything that makes life worth leaving.
Spoiler
I like the
alert, then.
puns. These are some good puns.
Yeah. And this one, I think I just picked this one, even though there's no pictures, is because to see what else was playing, because you had it with Mind Snatchers here, and then also Five Fingers of Death, which we covered over on The East Meets the West, and Sidney Poitier in the organization. And then Verde Doncella or De Tal Palo Astilla, I don't know what those are. And another cool one, just to show you, it was playing with Tales from the Crypt. Oh, and a triple feature with House That Dripped Blood.
That's from Pittsburgh.
Yep, the Pittsburgh Press, 1973.
There's the Dependable Drive-In. Oh, it's still there.
Is it really?
It is still there. There's 4 screens.
Wow.
That's awesome.
They usually only use 3 of them for some reason. I don't know. Maybe like since COVID, they took a hit in their business, but not really, because a couple times we've gone out there to see movies and we couldn't get in.
Oh, wow.
Like they were turning people away because they were sold out. So a lot of people still go to that drive-in. It's funny because when I was sharing ads from Pittsburgh on the Groovy Doom page, the Dependable went porn for a while, like as many drive-ins did in the late 70s and the early 80s, especially. They showed X-rated movies, but the Dependable isn't in Pittsburgh. It's just outside of Pittsburgh in a different district, and there was an ordinance that if you couldn't just show pornography at a drive-in, like you had to show, there had to be some kind of programming that anybody could attend. So they would show PG rated movies with the porn. And they would show 2 X-rated movies, and then the third movie on the bill was a PG rated film,
God.
which was amazing.
Wouldn't you think they do it the other way around? So the parents want to take their kids to a PG film, you go see that, then leave after the first movie?
No, because they didn't want families there.
Oh,
Because it was a porn drive-in, so they made it the last one.
that's hilarious. I remember going to a 4-screen drive-in. It was the Meadow Glen, which is now the Meadow Glen Mall, and we watched an awesome like quadruple feature. It was The Thing, and then it was like Friday the 13th part 3, 4, and 6, something like that. And I had it was, they were broadcasting in the late 80s on FM at that time. They started to. So I had my Walkman on, and I'm lying in the back of my parents' hatchback, and I looked over and I was watching heavy metal. And I would just tune the radio over to that, and I'm watching that while my parents are watching the movie here. Oh,
That's
man.
cool.
All right, this was a review. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I thought it was interesting because it basically lambastes the movie. Alas, Rosenberg, Sabatsky, and writer and director Roy Wood Baker have elected to broaden the blend of implied horror and subtle comedy that distinguished their earlier efforts. The menacing humor and understated violence have been replaced by touches of slapstick, buffoonery, and more than a little explicit blood and gore, which I was surprised that, at that review. I didn't quite agree with that.
There's always somebody who hates it.
Yeah.
You took it way too seriously.
This one here is supposedly a scene that's not found anywhere. And let me check with my notes here real quick if I can find it. Where did my notes go? Oh, there we go. Come on, you can do it. So, an uncensored version was first shown on the British TV channel Film 4, the British TV channel Film 4 on 25th of August of 2008, and later released by Scream Factory on a double feature Blu-ray with Tales from the Crypt. Questions have been raised as to if these prints are still missing a scene in which the characters who walk to the graveyard at the end are seen with dead skeletal faces. It may be that this shot has been lost. No prints containing it have ever surfaced, and there's no evidence it was ever included in the final release prints, as even the original unedited prints that have surfaced don't include a scene resembling this photo. It's also been widely speculated the image was just a photo taken for promotional purposes and was never a filmed scene, as Kurt Jurgens' character is portrayed by a different actor in the photo. Jurgens' character is the main focus of the end sequence. Hence, some have stated that a scene is unlikely to have been filmed with a different actor portraying the character, for audiences would have noticed the change.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
People didn't know that anybody was going to want to see that stuff later. Whenever they would cut things out of movies like that, like they would just throw that footage away because there was no post market for movies. Like nobody would want to, there was no place to even showcase the unedited footage yet.
Right.
So it's sad that so many things are just lost to the ages, like the spider sequence of King Kong
Right.
from the original King Kong.
So many things. I mean, even TV shows, there's so many, and those were easier to do because even though they had the giant videotapes, they would just record over them. It's like, what the
Yeah.
fuck are you thinking? So many episodes of Doctor Who are lost because of that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it was expensive, You weren't paying for that shit, Rigor. They were.
that's true. And then, of course, there's also the stories of, vinegar syndrome because people didn't take care of the films, the celluloid.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Vinegar syndrome.
yeah, that's Bill. Do you want to explain it again?
When the movie turns pink, if you've ever seen an old 35 millimeter film that hasn't been stored properly, eventually they all turn red. And the goal is to keep that from happening by storing it in a perfect climate controlled vault or something. And of course, most people didn't do that for certain types of movies, like the vintage porn from the 70s. Like nobody saved any of that stuff. And any kind of exploitation film from the 70s, especially, there wasn't a lot of value placed on that at the time, even like after it had already been exhibited in theaters. So they just let it rot somewhere. And, a lot of companies, the company Vinegar Syndrome is dedicated to restoring movies like that, like rescuing things that would just be lost and
Oh,
any other
wow.
way. And you have to be lucky enough to actually find some footage because now, with computer technology, you can fix that stuff. You can fix a lot of those images. You can clean it up again and make it, somebody, at least even for like, just posterity, like to students of film would want to see something like that to see how the art of filmmaking has changed. And, especially movies like exploitation films that there wasn't a lot of thought put into a lot of that stuff because the object was just to churn out these movies as quickly as possible and get them in theaters to make money off of it. So to find something like that, like, there are certain movies that are just lost. Like there's an independent regional movie called Sasqua, and it's obviously a Bigfoot movie, but Bigfoot is a murdering monster in it. It's kind of like that movie from 1980, Night of the Demon, if either of
Yeah.
you have ever seen that movie. Sasqua was another killer Bigfoot movie, and it was previously thought lost. And nobody, because it only got a very limited theatrical release. And hopefully it's been rescued. I remember seeing something online about it that someone had found a print and we were going to get a nice high def transfer of Sasqua soon. But that's Vinegar Syndrome. I took the long way. I took the scenic route. Sorry.
That's all right. No, that's cool.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
because Vinegar Syndrome is also the name of a company that puts out a lot of these, exploitation films on remastered on DVD and Blu-ray and stuff.
Is it because vinegar changes color over time as well, or where did the vinegar come from? The
It's an
idea.
element in the composition of the film.
Okay.
Becomes like as if like vinegar. It just changes.
Ferments or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mike, I think you'd stepped away for a minute, but we were just saying how a lot of TV shows were lost too. Like a ton of Doctor Who early episodes are gone forever
Oh.
because they literally recorded over the tapes. Oh, who's ever gonna watch this again?
It's a crime.
Yeah.
It's a crime.
Even like what's that one? The Holy Grail from the 1920s, the London After Midnight. We really only have still shots from that with Lon Chaney, and it's got the famous image of him with the top hat and the giant
Mm-hmm.
fang teeth. And I would love to see a restored version of that, but it just doesn't exist.
There's only a few minutes of that entire movie that still exists. And, a lot of people say, now, of course, we would want a version of London After Midnight no matter what, only because now it's become sort of like, as you said, the holy grail of lost films or one of them. But a lot of people who had been lucky enough to see a copy of London After Midnight before it vanished, this would have been probably in the 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe. I can't remember when the last actual screening of that movie could have been, but people who had seen it said that it was pretty boring, and there wasn't a whole lot of vampire action in it. It was just a couple short segments in the entire film. It's a murder mystery. It's actually it was remade as Mark of the Vampire starring Bela Lugosi.
Okay.
So that one really ramped up the vampire iconography. But the original London After Midnight supposedly didn't have a whole lot of horror elements to it. It was pretty talky.
Talky for a silent film.
Yes. For a silent movie. It was. So that tells you how exciting it was.
Right. A lot of card reading to do. That's funny. Well, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you, folks at home. And thank you, Dantes. We hope you deal with your flood issues from the Chicago rains. We're supposed to be getting rains. Like I said, it's already raining out now. So if you haven't had a chance to check out these films that we've been talking about today, please do. They right now, as of this recording, Asylum and Tales from the Crypt are on Tubi. And those can kind of go sometimes because I guess the rights move around from streaming app to streaming app. But Vault of Horror is on YouTube. And it's funny because I was watching one version. I started it one day and then I had to stop. And I went back to watch it again. I was on a different TV, so I wasn't logged in with my own account. And so the version I was watching was the same runtime, but it was much less quality. And I'm even telling my wife, I'm like, why does this look worse than it was? Then we had to stop it again. So then the third time around, I started it over and I found another copy that was cleaner. So there's like 4 or 5 different copies of it on there. I think they're all the same runtime, but if you want, if you're really particular about the quality of your film, then I suggest you do a quick click on one, watch it for a couple minutes, click on another, and then you'll see the differences. So all right, Bill, where can the folks find you online?
You can purchase back issues of my fanzine Drive-In Asylum on Etsy. Just do a search for Groovy Doom, which is my shop name. You can check out the Groovy Doom Facebook page. I'm always sharing interesting newsprint ads on there. Also, Groovy Doom on Instagram. And if you want to see more talking heads talking about movies, you can watch my weekly live screaming show. Live streaming. It's called the Drive-In Asylum Double Feature, and we're on Saturday nights, usually Saturday nights at 8. 2 movies. We don't serve the films. We talk about movies that can be watched for free online. We do a live segment and break, watch the movie, then we come back, do another live segment, break and watch the movie, come back for a third. And that's the Drive-In Asylum double feature. When I have to work on Saturday nights, it's a Drive-In Asylum late movie, and there's only one movie. It starts at 11, so check it out.
Nice. And Michael, if Bill is okay with it, we got to do that again. That was fun.
Yeah, that was like a marathon time investment, but it was cool. Yeah,
you don't have to do the whole thing, You can
no, I know.
Like 1 or 2.
I was like committed though. I was like, this is the first time I've done it. I'm going to do the whole thing. Yeah.
And for you, it starts at 2 p.m.
Yeah, it's easier for me, I guess. Yeah.
That's
true.
Funny.
All right.
So I wanted to mention before we wrap this up, Darren also posted a comment on Facebook. He said Sasko was shot in Lowell, Massachusetts, which I did not know that.
So no way. Wow.
That's cool. That's Mike and I grew up in Massachusetts as well, so we're familiar with the slums of Lowell.
Yeah, I know. People always refer to Lowell in a negative light.
Right.
I don't think I ever actually went there. I just heard about it.
So, folks, if you want to check out what I'm up to, I've got a bunch of blogs and my 3 podcasts. And, of course, this show appear on my website, havenpodcasts.com. And we've got some cool things coming up. We're headed for a website revamp, which is going to expand a lot of cool stuff. And I've got another project that's in the works that I can't say right now, but hopefully within the next, maybe, early into the new year, I'll be able to announce what that is. But otherwise, like I said, just check it out at havenpodcasts.com. Again, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks
and
for listening.
You for your comments. And we'll see you all next month.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, guys.
And if I can figure out what I'm doing here, I can end the live stream. Oh, there we go. I don't want to end.
Click on the button.